Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Modern Day Debate. I am your host, Ryan, and tonight we have tagged Father versus Son debate, but really it's Flat Earth Aussie versus Mark Reed. So to get us started with Flat versus Globe, we have Iron Horse on the floor. So Iron Horse, thank you so much for returning to Modern Day Debate, and the floor is all yours. Up to 10 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, my channel name is Iron Horse. I go by Ross Thatcher on Facebook, and you can also find me on Quora. So greetings, modern day debates, cool audience members and hecklers alike. Thanks for hosting, Ryan. Great to be back again. And best of luck, erudite mass debater of many topics, jack of all subjects, master of none, and son of Mark Reed's father. Today's topic was supposed to have been on the moon landing hoaxes, I thought, but intended to leave every listener convinced beyond a shadow of doubt that never happened. Well, the hoaxes did, while simultaneously destroying centuries of superstitious, religious, helio-nonsensical garbage as I did so. Now it's flat Earth reality versus globe Earth fantasy. So I'll simply reinterpret my original moon landing hoax introduction to conclude we don't live on a spinning space ball. Let us focus upon the laws of inertia and conservation of momentum. For here we'll see the real fraud and the absolute mountain of hand-waved dismissals my heliocentric buddy here will pretend nobody sees. It's absolutely no coincidence that the Apollo missions were named after ancient Greek gods, from Gemini, the star sign of the twins, to Apollo, the sun god, being pulled across the sky in his chariot by his four mighty steeds.
That's it. Full cutout. Yeah, he's completely frozen. Iron Horse, you completely froze. You're back.
Wow. Do I get my time back?
Yeah, you do. Go for it.
Where did I cut out? Where did I cut out?
You cut out about like 15 seconds ago. So if you just want to go back here, I do.
Right, yeah. So
I do admit I was.
It's absolutely no coincidence that Apollo missions were named after ancient Greek gods, from Gemini, the star sign of the twins, to Apollo, the sun god, being pulled across the sky in his chariot by his four mighty steeds, and his twin sister Artemis, often associated with Diana, goddess of the moon. Meanwhile, the geocentric sphere Earth sat upon the shoulders of the giant Atlas, whilst the deities danced and spun around. So in 1543, when the Jesuit priest Copernicus put the Earth in motion, slaying Apollyon's horses and leaving the sun in the central position of adoration, humanity's entire mindset had to adjust for the newsbound absurdities. The Vatican took advantage of their loyal priests' philosophical musings and thus, having discovered the Earth lost in the galactic sea, legally claimed ownership of the entire world to take and to do with as they please. The textbooks of today mostly leave out the following centuries of crusades, the invasions, the torturing, the burning of the heretics and hanging of the witches. Everyone was converted to worship their sun god. They wiped out and destroyed all the great advanced civilizations, burnt and or stole their books, forbid alternative health and healing practices, and all but destroyed the fine arts and architecture. When it all finally culminated in the great wars of last century, the new era of Rockefeller standards took over the compulsory government indoctrination institutions. The greatest, most obedient minds amongst the ranks were selected for elite military positions in the pursuit of science, that is, the art of mass killings, while the lower level intellects were often selected to carry out the field work. The rest were trained to be wage slaves in their field of choice, paying patriotic dues to support the cause, amongst other compulsory fees and the tax. Now the era of bamboozle really begins with the burgeoning movie industry. Again, no coincidence that one of the first motion movies ever produced was called A Trip to the Moon. And the era of film propaganda was ripening to soon overtake the printing press, despite the newspaper remaining the most popular form of mobile propaganda for many years. If it was written in black and white, the people willingly believed it. Eventually came the television, computers, and finally mobile phones filled the niche far more satisfactorily. The scrying black mirror you can hold in your hand that looks back at you. After became convinced of the heliocentric lie, the Jesuit priests appointed themselves as professors and teachers and introduced all manner of pseudo-scientific theories to convince the masses from infancy upwards. Of course, in the early days, they were forced to invent some sort of clinging theory for the sphere Earth, now that Atlas had hurled it into space. Their coup de grace was the theory of gravity, which keeps everything attracted to the Earth, while simultaneously keeping us in orbit around Helios as Luna orbits us, the very origins of lunacy. To any rational-minded person, that alone would debunk the globe model. But the next bamboozle, this little odd lady ain't stopping until she gets that fly. Today, the modern spaceballer demands that the sun is not in fact stationary, rather it careens over 500,000 miles an hour through the galaxy as Earth spins 25,000 miles per day on its axis, moving almost 1 degree around the sun, covering a mind-numbing distance of 1,600,000 miles a day. Meanwhile, the moon orbits us backwards from west to east, once every 27.5 days. The apparent east-west motion, practically identical to the sun, is due to our spin, not her orbit. NASA informs us that Apollo missions didn't quite reach escape velocity of 25,000 miles per hour as they travelled 238,000 odd miles to reach the moon. That in fact, they travelled a similar low Earth orbit velocity of 17,500 miles per hour that the ISS is supposed to be moving, which is about 10 times faster than a speeding bullet. The reason we can reach such incredible speeds, we are told, is because there is no friction in space. Without friction, however, there's no ability to steer, no ability to thrust, and most importantly, no ability to brake. Whilst my Helios buddy here will probably argue that the brilliant engineers calculate how to use gravity to get looped into a slingshot orbit around the moon so that they can release the Looney Lander for descent, they're completely forgetting the most important aspect of their modern superstitious sun-worshipping belief, conservation of momentum. Flight is only possible on Earth due to air, friction, and thrust, and of course, neutral buoyancies such as helium blimps and hot air balloons. Yet even a helium balloon drops to the floor in a vacuum chamber and a drone will not fly. An empty balloon with a knot tied in the end self-inflates due to the lack of external pressure, and it seems there's no supporting evidence to say that a rocket can provide thrust in a vacuum. In a vacuum, water boils at room temperature, proving just how essential air pressure is towards the very existence of all life on Earth. The only astronaut to ever test a pressure suit in a vacuum chamber remembers only feeling bubbles on his tongue before rising out. We simply didn't have the technology back then, just as we don't now, to overcome the limitations of mobility in a zero-pressure environment. The Eagle Tweaker shelter allegedly had 10,000 pounds of thrust, and we must be forced to believe a whole bunch of other tiny thrusters that somehow turned the thing around to practically zero momentum after moving 10 times faster than a speeding bullet, then gently lower itself onto a rocky surface, moving a much more subdued, double the rate of a speeding bullet. Fortunately, we're told, all their training missions were so good that they wouldn't even know the difference. Something to make you go, Even if we remove all this conservation of momentum and say that because of relativity, we can ignore all the inertia they left the Earth with, and even if we say they were capable of slowing down to the relatively much slower orbital speed of the moon, even then, we must understand that an average drone pilot would struggle to safely land a drone on a treadmill traveling just 10 miles per hour. But even then, the drone pilot must have an atmosphere or it would simply plummet to the base of a vacuum chamber. Perhaps today, a skilled drone pilot could sort of hover close to the surface of a moving vehicle and drop the final bit on it, minimising damage to a small plastic device such as a drone. But the fragile Looney Lander, using only thrusters for balance in a vacuum environment, held together with scotch tape and curtain rods, incredibly lands safely 6 out of 6 times. No atmospheric assistance whatsoever, didn't get ripped apart by an unknown hostile environment of a foreign rocky body, not decimated by billions of shards of micrometeorites that had never been exposed to an iota of erosion from wind or rain their entire existence, raining back down on them. They didn't show that bit on TV, yet we can't assume it was blasted smooth if we're to believe the images of footprints in the concrete dust. When a high-altitude pilot reaches heights above 60,000 feet, they must wear a pressure suit and have full breathing apparatus. 60,000 feet, not even 12 miles. This means there's no pulling over for a restroom break, no removing the suit to scratch your blue marbles or send a probe to Europe, another planet. Those guys are in those suits the whole way, there and back. Anybody say poopy pants? Pressure is the only thing keeping us alive. I've mentioned already that water boils in a vacuum. Here in Earth's full gravity, at room temperature, in just a very weak vacuum. Well, Buzz never took that suit off to be the first man to relieve himself on the moon. It said that there's currently 96 bags of human excrement on the moon. How did they get there? At what point did they open the hatch on the back of their suits and not have their entire intestinal system voided into the void before every other precious bodily fluid vacated itself? Oddly enough, the narrative tells us that when they got back into the Looney Lander, they were surprised by how warm the rocks felt after removing their gloves. Now think, McFly, think. The shell of their moon boat was about 2 layers of tinfoil thick. A balloon self-inflates in a weak vacuum environment. Helium balloons expand and burst at 24 to 25 miles high. At 238,000 miles, anything containing air pressure would blow up way more spectacularly than the Michelin man giving himself an air hose enema with the pressure turned up to 11. So even if they had sufficient air to repressurize that thing, it would be all over for them before they had the chance to hit the rainbow unicorn fart button and take off, as seen on TV. Not to mention redocking with the command module, repressurizing all over again. I'm sorry, but they didn't have a scuba tank amongst them for even a single hour of assisted breathing, much less enough canned air to repressurize multiple times over or dump their bags of poop. All in all, the impossibility of the moon landings themselves is absolute evidence that the Earth cannot be an open-air spaceship hurtling 10 times faster than a railgun projectile through a vacuum of space, somehow conveniently orbiting the main thermonuclear engine 93 million miles away. The god of the gap's gravity is perfectly helpless to explain how the air wouldn't simply fill the void like an astronaut's former intestines, let alone how it clings to the outer surface of a spinning globe with beautiful calm days, gently wafting clouds, howling storms, and frequently opposing winds at different heights. Even if we went back to the original geocentric model sitting on the shoulders of Atlas, it's too late. They sent the spider to catch the fly. I don't know why she swallowed the fly, but now that horse has bolted. The heliocentric model has had its day in the sun, but that era of superstition and pseudoscience and church dictatorship and world domination is coming to its final days. I'm not surprised that many Stockholm Syndrome sufferers will vehemently defend their masters after generations of survival under oppression and manipulation. But once they realize the freedom that truth can bring, the great aha moment, they'll seriously wonder how it was even possible they ever believed such nonsense in the first place. Heliocentrism is pure. I've got one sentence.
Go ahead.
One more sentence.
No worries.
Heliocentrism is pure insanity. The stationary topographical physical plane fixed at the bottom of the regularly repeating universe is the cure. Respectfully, on behalf of Mother Earth.
All right. Thank you so much, Iron Horse, for your introductory statement. All I heard was Michelin Men with an anima. So awesome. Well, thank you so much. Mark Reed is getting his screen share up and ready there. So I will let you know, I'm going to get a poll in our live chat here in just a moment, and you guys can let us know what you think hanging out in the Modern Day Debate chat. I'll also just shout out, James is in the chat and says, Flat Earth Aussie is not actually related to Ryan nor Mark. Flat Earth Aussie is actually my father. Is that true? Did you are you secretly Darth Vader and you brought us the chosen one? Is that what you're telling us? Anyways, we're gonna hand it over to you, Mark. You have up to 10 minutes, and thank you so much for being here.
Yep, no problem at all. And I'm just sharing my screen, I think. Did it share?
Yep, you're up and running.
Okay, fantastic. And I'll just organize my side. Kind of works. One sec. There we go. Okay, beautiful. So first off, thank you so much, Ryan and Modern Day Debate, for hosting me. Thank you to Flat Earth Aussie or Flat Earth Aussie Genius or Iron Horse or whatever you're still calling yourself now. Thank you for being my opponent, and thank you to the audience for tuning in. Yeah, I was a bit taken aback by the father versus son, because I've got no relation to Flat Earth Aussie. And quite frankly, obviously not even Modern Day Debate is taking this subject seriously anymore. So, there's that. But, I would like to get started. And really, I only have one point, and it's my favorite point on the Flat Earth sort of debate. And I really would like to explore more of it and get some kind of concrete answer, some kind of answer at all from one of the Flat Earthers. So I thought I would focus on it today. My favorite is basically the circumpolar rotation. But for the start of it, I'll just point out, like I usually do, that sort of how does it work on a flat Earth that some of the stars are only visible from either north of the equator or south of the equator, assuming, of course, Iron Horse here is actually using north and south and the equator. It's very odd that over all of these times I've debated and the years and years people have been debating this, that no one on the flat Earth side come up with any kind of model to explain this, anything we can check to even mark what we see in the world against some sort of explanation. They will say vague platitudes like perspective or something else, and never any actual thing that we can look at and compare to the world around us. Now, for the world around us, what do we see when we look at the circumpolar stars? Now, this is in the northern hemisphere. I believe it's from Northern America. And basically, we can see these stars going counterclockwise against the rotation of a clock, basically. This is the same at any point in the Northern Hemisphere, from Russia to Northern America to Northern Asia. It doesn't really matter where you are. You will always see the same rotation. Same with Europe, same with anywhere above the equator. So this is what we see in the Northern Hemisphere. But what do we see in the Southern Hemisphere? And this is the same for Australia, South Africa, South America. We see them going in a clockwise direction, the opposite way. Now, this is very, very unusual for stars that are supposedly rotating above us. Now, the globe model has a very good explanation for this, and this is sort of how it seems. In northern, they rotate counterclockwise, and at the equator, they go straight overhead, and in the southern hemisphere, they rotate clockwise about the southern celestial pole. So this is what is observed in the real world around us. Now, from Earth, these are kind of the calculations we can make to see how much of the stars we should see from any point north or south or on the equator. And those calculations are very precise. They will tell us exactly the amount of stars we should see and exactly the point at which they should be rotating, how elevated in the sky it is. This lines up with exactly what we see in the real world. But I do have an amazing graphic that shows how it works. Now, it's important to realize this graphic shows how it works, but it's not the stars that are rotating. It's the Earth that's rotating in this graphic. It just is there to simplify what you're actually seeing and how it lines up with what we observe in the real world around us. And this shows the northern, then the southern, and then the equator, and how we should see the stars, which is exactly what we see. Now, on the flat Earth, what's the problem? Well, from the northern hemisphere, everything internal to that sort of red line there, you see the stars going counterclockwise in a counterclockwise direction. Okay, well, that could explain the stars rotating in the sky above you. Great, that's not a problem. But what should we see the stars in the southern hemisphere? Well, from the southern hemisphere, this one is going clockwise, which is fine. That's not a problem. On the left, it's going clockwise. But on the right, it's going anti-clockwise, which is not what you see from Australia here. You do not see it going you see it going clockwise. So that one is correct, but that one is not. So there's a problem here. And also, so if these were to be correct, the southern hemisphere down near Australia would have to be going clockwise as well. And that would be opposite to one another. They would be going in opposite directions. Now, one of the excuses I hear is a perspective argument. Oh, you're looking at it from the other side. The problem is that even if you're on this side, it's still going this which is going anti-clockwise. You can see it going against the turning of a clock. Even if you're over here or above it or down at this side, it's still going anti-clockwise. You can't just change your perspective on that plane. So how is it that it reverses direction on a globe? Well, it's called the plane of rotation. Now, I want to point this out here. The plane of rotation is essentially, it's perpendicular or sort of orthogonal, it's called, to the axis. So the axis of a fan is sort of right in the center here. So it's the line sort of going through the fan in the center. The plane of rotation is the flat plane around. It's 90 degrees to that line of axis. So the plane of rotation would be the blades on the fan as it's spinning. It will reverse direction if you go to the other side of the fan. Now, this works on a globe model because the plane of rotation is the equator. Because it's orthogonal or 90 degrees to the axis, that makes the plane of rotation. So when you go from the north to the south, you're actually crossing the plane of rotation. That's why it appears to be going the other way. But how does this work on a flat Earth? And this is what I'd really like to know. Because in order to go to the other side of the stars, presuming, of course, the Earth is stationary and fixed, you would have to go to the other side of the stars in order for that rotation to change, because the plane of rotation would be the plane of stars in the heavens above us. So I want to know, and I want to see the model that shows how that works. How does that work? And if it is the Earth that's rotating, the flat Earth that's rotating, how do you get to the other side of the Earth and see the rotation change? Because that only happens when you cross that plane of rotation. The other thing I want to also just mention as a side note is sort of the final experiment. I want to know if Iron Horse or Flat Earth Aussie or whatever he's called now is actually going to Antarctica to see the 24-hour sunlight. And I'd like to know why he's not, if he's not. I think that it should be fairly easy. And if it's so important to you, why not prove it by going and seeing that the sun sets in the middle of summer in the Southern Hemisphere? Because we know that the Southern Hemisphere, we get more sunlight in the summer, as does the Northern Hemisphere. It's just summer and winter are reversed. So I would like to sort of press on that. But really, I would like to have an explanation for how you're crossing that plane of rotation. But that's about it for me. So thank you.
All right, awesome. We'll end the screen share there. I got that on my side. I don't know why I incessantly need to sing my way through it. It's fine. So thank you so much, Mark, for your introductory statement. We are going to move into an open discussion. So I'm going to fire up a poll for you guys to participate in. You can let us know where you stand on the argument right now, or if you don't stand on it and you're just listening and chewing and coming up with your own opinions. I will say, just for housekeeping, welcome to Modern Day Debate. We are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, politics, and religion. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on podcast right now as well, and you're thinking, hey, I would like to participate in these discussions live, you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And that is a reminder that we are on all podcast stations. So if you need to save some data, listen to us on the go, that's great. Lastly, I will say you get to engage with the speakers on screen at Modern Day Debate by putting in super chats. You can ask questions to pique your curiosity and maybe put our conversation into some new territory. So with all the housekeeping done that I can imagine, let's get into an open discussion. Iron Horse, over to you. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's never ceases to amaze me that when we're trying to talk about the flat Earth, Mark basically talks about anything but, and just wants to look at the lights in the ceiling to try and understand the nature of the ground beneath his feet, which could easily be proven just by the nature of water alone if we're going to go there. But he wants to look to the stars, which that's fine. The very reason we say we have the sunset and sunrise, moonset is because of the spin of the Earth going from west to the east. And every star we see should also be following in a similar sort of pattern, especially along the same sort of path from that east-west direction. And yet everybody everywhere, no matter what angle they're at, looking up at the pole star, sees perfect circles from every angle. Now, that would be absolutely impossible on a spinning ball. The further away you are from the pole, the more elliptical your side of the rotation would be, and the stars behind Polaris would seem to be shrinking closer and closer to them. If they are exactly what they're doing, they wouldn't be making perfect circles. I've been challenging people for many years now, and not a single person has come to the challenge, is to just set up a ball hanging from a rope or whatever, a string in a big warehouse and shed, fill the whole entire room with tiny little Christmas tree lights, stick two cameras on them, one pointing to the pole star at the top of the rope, one pointing to the pole star at the bottom of the rope at 45 degrees latitude for each one, spin the ball and show me making perfect circles of all the stars around the pole stars. It simply won't happen. It's an impossibility, especially if then go and put a sun over 50% of the whole thing. So you're only going to see half of the circle anyway. They'd all be semicircles from dusk till dawn.
You're sort of gish gallop, Iron Horse. You're gish galloping on when you're going through point after point after point. So let's stick.
I'm just addressing your star trails. It's all to do with your star trails, mate.
Yeah, so I'd like to address some of these things because you said the nature of water, and I've got questions about that. But you said the spin of Earth is from west to east. But unfortunately, and I'm so glad you brought that up, if you look at the south circumpolar stars, the circle around it, we know it's west to east because we're looking past the South Pole, and those ones going from right to left or left to right, the ones closest to us are going that direction, and the ones that we're looking at past the pole, past the southern point, are going in the opposite direction. As you can see, I can show you the graphic again if you would like. But you've got no South Pole to draw on. So those stars are actually going from east to west on your model. So how does that work? Because you've got no South Pole to say, hey, I'm looking beyond it. No, I haven't finished with your points. You're not gish galloping.
Yeah, you just asked me a question.
No, Ryan.
Why do I have to answer multiple questions at a time?
If he's going to gish gallop and bring out multiple points, I want the time to be able to address those points.
I will not remember your question if you keep on gish galloping. Will ask me more questions.
All right,
You
somebody's
brought
going to
up
have to
these
make a list.
points.
So if you both feel like you're bringing too much to the table, we're going to have a little, push and pull here. So if you want to finish your
Yeah, well,
point
I've
there, Mark
already
Reed.
forgotten
No,
the
hold on one
question.
Yeah,
second,
yeah.
Iron Horse. One second.
I'll finish my points.
Let's let
Thank
Mark
you.
finish his point, and let's try to
Yeah.
keep it to 1 point, and then we'll
So
bounce back.
this is a tactic I've run into with a lot of these people. They'll gish gallop, bring up multiple points, and then when you try and address them all, they're going, no, 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 you can't address them all. Stop bringing up so many points. I made that very clear. Now, the elliptical orbit thing, the elliptical orbit is around the sun, not the rotation of the Earth. If you knew anything about the sort of heliocentric model, you would understand this. It's an elliptical orbit. I'm talking about the Earth's rotation. So it's not elliptical. How can a ball spin elliptically? So you've muddled up the two there. Now, the sort of a rope with the
Just before you carry on, if you can just, like I say, if we need to clarify some things, if you could summarize those two things that you just highlighted, and then let Iron Horse respond.
The problem is, Ryan, he'll bring up another 5 things and then try to stop me from addressing them. So if we could just stick to maybe a couple of points at a time so I can address them, and then we can get back to it.
Idea.
Absolutely great.
So what Ryan just suggested.
So let's just do those 2 points first, and then, like I say, if you can hold on to your idea for a few seconds and let Iron Horse respond. If you don't like what he has to say, like I say, you can keep on going down those examples, or you can follow him down the trail.
I will interrupt when he tries to go to another point. That's not a problem. So the pole star thing is ludicrous. You're on the ball, not watching it. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. Like it's completely ridiculous that you think that you can watch it and get the same perspective as somebody who is absolutely tiny standing on the ball. And don't forget, it's only rotating at 360 degrees per 24 hours. So you would have to sit there and watch it in time lapse for 24 hours, which I presume you have not done.
We do need to pass the ball over. So over to you, Iron Horse.
Okay, so Mark completely doesn't understand his own model, tries to ridicule me about my understanding of the helio-nonsensical model, which I know inside and out. I simply said that when a person is anywhere far enough away from a pole, because of the curve of the Earth, the angle they'll be looking at it from their perspective gets greater and greater. I wasn't talking about your orbit around the sun or any of that silly nonsense when I talk about elliptical. I'm talking about the appearance of the stars from the personal, singular point of view. You drew all your star circles as though everybody lives on the poles, though everybody's sitting on this really squashed bagel Earth or something, and we're all somehow looking up at the perfect circles. That's the only way it could work. But because it's this massive, big, huge curve, there are people who've seen the stars from the pole stars in 360-degree photography from at the equator. Now, in the ball Earth model, you're looking over thousands and thousands of miles of curve. How could you possibly see both from the same place? It totally is impossible on the globe.
Okay, that was a question, so I'll jump in. Oh, that was a question, so I'll jump in. Fine. So basically, if you actually looked at the pictures that I showed you, it's not a like when you are at the equator, what you see is straight lines going across in front of you. I showed it on a graphical model. I showed it with pictures, and the actual circumpolar stars are at the horizon. So they will sit at the horizon when you're at the equator. You don't see them high in the sky. As you move towards the poles, they get higher and higher into the sky. When at the poles, and I have pictures of this if you do want to see it, they're actually above you. Those circumpolar stars rotate above you, directly above you. This is not at all explained on a flat Earth. It's only explained on a globe Earth.
It is explained on the flat Earth.
None of this is an explanation to how it works on a flat Earth. All it's trying to say is, hey, your model's got problems, which it doesn't. It's perfectly explained. So if you could explain it on a flat Earth, that would be great. Do you have a model or something to present how this is actually working on a flat Earth?
Something to present, not exactly, since I'm using my cell phone, but you're more than welcome to look up on my channel a video I've got, I don't know how many down, 12 or 15 down. It's called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. That theory explains from the flat Earth perspective perfectly how I believe our model works. We have what I call the firmament, but it acts like a jewel. It's even explained described in many places as like a giant sapphire in the sky. And so once you reach that outer facet, that's the equator. That's the flat facet of the jewel. You can sort of see it on a diamond, how there's a flat facet. Well, then that's the equator there with Polaris at the very top. So on the outside of it, it's like a kaleidoscope. And if you ever looked at a kaleidoscope, all the central point rotates one way, but then every single outer facet shows an identical image of the same thing, and each one of those facets all go in the opposite direction, and they're all moving around. So there's like at least 6 facets rotating around. So that can explain why you can see the same stars in multiple places in the outer side of the equator in our model. So if you researched it and sort of see where I'm coming from in the first place, I wouldn't really have to go and describe it again. You'd say, oh, that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds theory, I have heard of that. That could work. That's how I describe it.
Okay, well, I think theory is a very, very generous. I mean, I would be hard pressed to sort of say that it's even a hypothesis. I think a claim at this point is really what I would say. So, what is this kaleidoscope made of? What holds this jewel up in the sky? What is the jewel made out of? And what sort of experiments have you done to show that this jewel actually, in fact, exists and can project some sort of image? Apparently 360 degrees around us to make it look like it's heading in the opposite direction.
I wouldn't be able to tell you that. Some things are completely beyond my ability to even try to second guess at what would be made out of. That's as far as I'm concerned, we do have a firmament above us, which would be made out of frozen hydrogen, on the simple basis that everything finds its place according to density and buoyancy. And thus this solid layer of frozen hydrogen would be holding in a complete ocean of superfluid helium. And that's part of how my model particularly works. What's in between it? Maybe some sort of etheric Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds type of thing. Like I've just taken clues from multiple different sources, and some things I simply can't explain. But what I can say is that my model does fit observations. And so that's why I'm working with it. And I think it's worth thoroughly scrutinizing, because it fits the observations. So therefore it is a working theory until it's debunked. That's how a thing no longer becomes a theory. Until then, it can be a current best theory.
Okay, so how do you know that the theory fits if you don't know anything that it's made out of, how it works, where it moves, if it even exists at all? You have no idea how this behaves, yet you're saying it fits the theory. How can it possibly fit if you know nothing about it?
No, I didn't say I know nothing about it. I'm just saying that everything is not as it seems. The way the nature of light works, basically, is the most important factor to understand in the first place. Because then it doesn't matter what this thing is made out of. What matters is the results that we see. And when we're seeing through the sky in the daytime, it's literally like a blinding veil. We don't see anything but blue sky, and we see the sun through it, and part of the moon that's lit is currently bright enough to be seen. But other than that, it blocks our view of everything. So we actually see less in daytime than what we do at nighttime. And then at nighttime, there's not enough light to see it. But what we do see is that the stars match those observations, and all the celestials match those observations. And so it's a working model, which is what you keep asking.
How is it at the equator it's going in the reverse direction? How is that facet not seen by people south of the equator? How does that work? Because you're basically saying, well, I know how it works, but you're not actually explaining how it works, or even what it's made of, or how it projects these images that you're talking about onto other facets, but nobody else sees these facets. I don't understand how that works.
Because the straight edge there is where the first facet changes. So then as that's rotating around like a kaleidoscope, it's what's projecting the stars down through our skylight, our firmament B, where we see where the natural light even begins to exist. And so that's where the stars begin to straighten up, is at the equator. And that's when we're looking through a reverse image, just like the kaleidoscope, and then they start to appear around a central point in the opposite direction. It actually works.
Yes, but a kaleidoscope, you can see all the other images. So if someone's looking south from, for instance, an island in the Pacific, and someone's looking south from Australia, we both see the same stars. But you're sort of saying, hey, that's a kaleidoscope. Why don't I see the stars that they're seeing, another image off to the side? Because a kaleidoscope, you look through it and you see multiple images. You are. So I should see multiple constellations. No. You said they are. So should I see multiple constellations of the same type over somewhere else in the sky?
Right, I can save you a lot of that hot air there. I can answer that question. It's a really big kaleidoscope. Earth big. Earth huge. Earth is all of existence. It's the physical plane at the bottom of the known universe. It is massive. We can only see through one facet at a time. Our personal horizon is barely 3 miles. Even if we drew 10 times as big as that and we drew a little dot on the map and started zooming out, it would be a bare pixel before you've even seen the size of your state. Earth is huge. We see through one tiny facet at a time, through our own eyes. We can't see what they're seeing at the same time. They're looking at a completely different facet of the exact same thing, because there's that many different facets going around the outside, and the one identical one in the middle means everyone in the equator is all looking at the same one, up through the center to Polaris, which is the center of all our rotating celestial bodies. So it's massive. We don't see very much at all.
So you're sort of saying that there are, how many of these facets are there around the outside of the Earth? How many?
They've been using this jewel cut for a very long time. That's why I say, if you've done your research and watched my video previously, Lucy in the Sky of Time's Theory,
I don't watch conspiracy theories.
Well, it's all explained. I'm not going to. You don't let me speak for even a minute. How am I going to describe something that took me 25 minutes to describe in the first place?
I'm here to debate, not sort of, watch.
Well, don't ask me questions and debate. Let's talk about how you have an atmosphere swinging in a vacuum.
Carry into how. Okay, so let's just go back to what you were saying with the diamond there and the points on the diamond. If you can just explain how that ties in, and then I think that would be interesting to carry on from there. But definitely give them some space there, if you don't mind, Mark, just to explain that, so our audience is also in the know.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah, it's just an old question, isn't it? How long is a piece of string? All we know is what we see is what we get. We have our own personal perspective, and we only see through a very tiny portion at a time. So there could be 24 multiple facets on the outside. There could be 20,000 for all I know. But I would think a reasonable number would be anywhere from 6 to 12, 24 at the most. Yeah. Done.
Yeah, so I don't really see that working on a model scale. Like, if that's the case, then there would not be, like, if you and I are on Australia and there's only 6 or so, there's no way we would both look south and see the same stars. And plus, what we see is all those stars rotating, going all the way to the horizon, and not sort of being cut off at any point by another set of stars rotating. So that's just doesn't fit what we observe in the world. It just doesn't. So, I'm asking you how it works, and everything is, well, I don't know how many there are. I don't know what it's made of. I don't know, all of these things. Yet you will claim that you know all about it, that it fits the model, which is impossible because you don't even know how many there are. If we said, well, we don't know how many stars there are, that would be a problem. But we know the stars that we see in the sky, and it also doesn't explain why at the equator these stars are going in a line with the circumpolar rotation at the equator. Maybe you could explain that, why I don't see these other facets, why I see the circumpolar stars at the horizon. Sorry.
I already did explain that. I said when you reach the equator, that is the equivalent of looking up at the edge of the inner facet, the flat one. And all the rest of them, it's sure enough, it's mystery. But when you're standing anywhere, no matter any location on the equator, it's about 25,000 miles, 40,000 kilometers in circumference. How far do you think you can see out of that 40,000 kilometers? You can see sweet bugger all. There's no way that you should be able to see all that distance and see both polar stars when your horizon is only 3 miles away. It's just simply not possible, and they're doing it everywhere on the equator. So it's really, I don't know how you can't see how that logically does not work from a globe. Whereas if we're seeing through a facet and it's projected through our atmosphere, which the atmosphere is the giver of light, we see our personal line of sight perspective to each and every single star. So for each and every one of us, it will seem to be the same direction. But another thing about direction, you probably don't understand, I'm going to finish on this point because it's important, is if you lined 100 people up down a north-south corridor, each with a compass, and gave them a marker pen, and you said, put a mark on the wall exactly where due east is. So they all look at their compass, due east, mark on the wall. No, so now the last person, what direction is the person at the front? is what direction is there due east? And he looks at his camera and says, it's nearly due north, sir. And the one at the front, it's nearly due south, sir. So everybody's direction is subjective. Your east and my east and their south and your south, they're all completely different. All directions are subjective. Thanks for letting me get my point out.
Yeah, so this whole idea of a personal thing, like we know that, and this whole idea that your range to see is limited, yeah, that's at ground level. Like if something is high up, like, I don't know, a building, you can see it from a lot further away. I mean, I don't understand how you don't understand this. This is crazy. The stars are really high up in technical terms, so you can see them from a long, long way away. That's the whole point. You know, this whole idea, well, you're at ground level, so I think your view is limited. Yeah, if something's higher up, like a building, you can see it from a lot further away because it gets the bottom cut off and you can see the top of it. The stars are really, really far up, so you can see them from a long, long way away. And we know how light travels. We're using it to communicate right now. So this idea that suddenly this kaleidoscope thing has stopped its light to us is nonsense. It's absolute ridiculousness. Like, I want to know how this facet projects onto one area but not onto another. It's absolute ridiculous. And this whole idea of, well, if you have a point on the wall and someone says almost north, sir, the problem is that looking at the south celestial circumpolar stars, some of the stars are going east to west on your model. Some are going west to east. Some are going north to south because it's a rotation. They're going in all different directions. Now, on the globe model, we understand that that is around the southern pole, which you never answered this question. How does that work on a flat Earth? That some are going towards the edge of the Earth, some are coming from the edge of the Earth towards you, some are going left to right across the edge of the flat Earth, some are going right to left across the edge of the flat Earth. You never explained how that happened. You just said it is so.
You don't seriously believe that we think the Earth has an edge, that the flat Earth has an edge. You know, the Antarctica is just the rim that we know of, that we can't go beyond. And that's where the whole, everything seems to rotate around above us. So we get a different projection around Antarctica, which is why, again, because it is the an individual facet on each section of it, that as the light gets projected down towards our summer, it actually extends further and further out, which is why the light does spread around more and more of the exterior to give more than 12 hours daylight through our summer season. And at the far extremities of that, especially towards the solstice itself, the sun can get point far enough outwards that it actually goes right around the whole entire rim of every single facet. So from every different place in Antarctica, you will actually see your own individual sun going around the horizon. Whereas when we see the 24-hour sun in the northern hemisphere, it does more of a sine wave sort of thing because of our distance from the poles. So
okay,
I think
okay. So I have a question.
questions.
Yeah, no, I have a question then. So is there a south pole in Antarctica that causes these stars in the rotation to then go north beyond it?
No. As we go outside,
so
stars extend out
when
infinitely.
You go towards...
Hang on, let me finish. As the stars extend out infinitely, potentially into infinity, all we see are the ones that we see through our individual facet, which is where there's that dark spot in the center, because it's not actually a pole star at all. It's just the way that the rest of the stars to the limits of Antarctica get projected back down towards us. But there could be more and more stars, keeps on going forever. Just the ones we see get to appear to go in another circle because they're all going around Polaris. They're still going around Polaris.
Right.
They're just being reversed.
Never mention Polaris. It's the south circumpolar stars.
Yeah,
the ones going around the center. No. Let me finish. Let me finish. The ones going around the south one. So what we see from your perspective is stars going in all directions because they're all going around that what presumably is a south pole. But to you, it's not a south pole. To you, it's a reflection inverted on some kind of crystal in the sky that has been flipped and then shown to me, even though that's at a different direction than someone in South America, someone in South Africa, someone in the Pacific, somebody in the Atlantic, and it always changes for some reason, we don't know why, and maybe you could explain this, why it moves to show it at the south anywhere in the southern hemisphere that you go. If there's only 12 of them, why do I never see it on an angle to the south?
Because you probably don't travel the oceans all the time and there's nothing different to see if you were out in the middle of the Pacific. But we see them from personal locations once again. And we have our day and nights at completely different times. So when we're seeing the sun, they're seeing the stars. We're seeing the stars, they're seeing the sun. That's just how the model works. Everything is rotating around as a singular body, everything around polaris. So that what appears to be the southern celestial pole star is not. It's just the rest of the stars seen through the rest of the kaleidoscope going the opposite way. So as the whole thing keeps rotating around. Now, I've actually described it more as a star tetrahedron shape, which I'm sure you're probably quite familiar with, these sort of things, where it's like two intersecting pyramids, one upside down, one the right way up. And as that sort of rotates, that sort of also presents facets as well. So it may not necessarily be the facets as I've described, which again, I've also described in my video about Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. There could be multiple different things that we don't understand, but still present them to us in a different way. And basically, I think that is reflected in the pyramids. That's why the pyramid is such an important shape found mysteriously.
Okay, I'm not going off onto a
around the
tangent about the pyramids.
Just-
No.
just
You're
one
not
second
going
before
to.
we get down.
Tetrahedron skylight shape.
Before we get down a different subject hole there, guys, I know we really like exploring them. We missed our happy 420 votes on our poll there, guys. I was going to say, well, look at that, everybody. It's time to light up and look at the poll. All right, so the Earth is flat. We got 26% of our audience voting for flat, coming in at 59% for the globe. And then maybe this isn't politically correct, but I grew up in the 2000s, so the Earth is in better shape than your mom. 15% voted for that. So we're going to carry on. If you have any, let's launch in from there beyond the pyramids, Mark Reed, to respond to what you just heard. And before you do, because I am trying to do housekeeping and trying to do my job and the things I'm supposed to do, we got over 600 people watching right now, just a little over 450 votes, but our like button is looking really just untouched, everybody. So, like, won't you just give it a poke? All right, go ahead there, Mark Reed. Let's see if we can get back on track.
Yeah, so this whole thing of I don't travel the ocean. Yeah, people do. People do, sail on ships and things like that. That people are navigators. They do use ships, and we have seen all kinds of things like that. If you travel from sort of the equator south, you won't see this facet change. You won't have a point at which you and I have, when I was a child, done a cruise around from Sydney to Queensland to Fiji I went to Vanuatu as well. Now, if you look at that, and surely someone would have noticed the change of facet, nobody has, because it's not real. It's just a made up
I already explained it,
story. Excuse me, I'm talking a bullcrap story that somebody has thrown out to try and explain something that can't be explained on their model.
This whole... Let me address your point.
Excuse me, this whole thing, we don't see the change of facet. Now, which is more likely, that you've got a plane, and by the way, there's no southern circumpolar star. There's no star in the middle. It's just a blank. There's no star pointing.
So we do need to pass the ball before you do another. By the way, because
well, I'm just going to say, yeah. I just want to say, well, I mean, he tosses out tons of points. Which is more likely? You're just changing which side of that plane that you're on, like you go across to the opposite side of a fan and the stars change rotation, or there is a magical jewel in the sky that's projecting on you exactly what you want to see, even though tons of people have traveled like across America and the facets never changed. Tons of people have gone around the world and they never see the facets change.
Okay, as I was trying to tell you, to save you all this trouble, I already explained why we don't see the change in the facets. It's a gradual thing that happens at dawn and dusk, where the light sort of hides it all. The atmosphere itself, glowing during daytime, hides everything, and at night time it's too dark to see them, and we're only seeing our own individual facets. So I don't know why you expect to see this sudden change unless you're in a supersonic jet traveling at super speeds, in which case it would probably just gradually change into the next one anyway, and you wouldn't even notice it. So there's your answer. Simple.
That's not
Solved.
how.
Right,
That's
now, can we
that's
move
not.
on from looking at the lights in the sky now and try and address some of the problems of
That's
how you have a
not how
pressurized
light.
gradient on a
That's
spinning
not
space
how.
I'm
ball
fine.
happening 10 times faster
One
than a
second,
railgun
one second,
projectile
both
to
of you.
space?
Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine if you want to move on from this point,
Yeah.
and I'll hand it back to you, Iron Horse, to launch us into. While Mark's making his response, just for the sake of our audience, of course, Mark. Just if you think of something new that we can launch into, then that's totally cool by me. If we want to move off this, so go ahead there, Mark, and respond to that, and we'll try to carry on.
That's not how light works. You don't have like a gradual change in the light to something else. This is just an excuse to say nobody's noticed this. We've all studied the Earth, and everybody's been paying attention. Nobody nobody noticed. You
Never
heard
heard
it
of
first
twilight.
here.
Never heard of twilight. Never seen a sunset. Never seen
Yeah, there's
twilight in the
stars.
morning.
Mm-hmm.
The stars gradually fade out of view altogether, and then it becomes daylight, and we see no more stars.
Well,
And
no.
then we see
they're
nothing else
just
but the sun.
Well, no, the sun becomes brighter and brighter until the stars are hidden by the light, but they're still there.
That's what I said. Gradual change, twilight. You don't know the first thing about the nature of light, especially when it comes to the flat Earth model. The sun is the stimulator of the noble gases in our atmosphere and various other gases that actually fluoresce to create light. So daylight and sunlight are two completely different things. And that's why we have twilight in between, because twilight is the neon gas predominantly glowing. It's the first and last to glow, which glows on orange around its edges, and it glows bright white in direct sunlight, which is what creates the heat of the day. That's why it gets colder further up, because there's no more of the neon layer further up. So our flat Earth model has everything working according to density and buoyancy, and the nature of light is connected to it all. Our atmospheric gases are the most important factor of it all. And even for starlight, all light is created in our atmosphere. She is the giver of light. It's not out there millions and billions of miles away. It's all in our sky.
So when are we going to see this model in action? Like, when are you going to actually present the model? You know, some diagrams.
Step outside any night.
Excuse me, some calculations, something showing this model that you've got.
Step outside any night. Why do you need a model? What do you need calculations for? It's right there in your face.
We live on it. You have a model. You said you have a model.
We live on it. Yeah, that's right. We live on it.
Look at the trees then. Is that your answer?
Look at the trees, look at the stars, look at the clouds, look at everything. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's jump into what I wanted to talk about in the next one. Now, you believe your spinning space ball orbits the sun at some phenomenal 66,600 miles an hour, or 100,000 kilometers, pardon me, which is about approximately, where was I going with that? 10 times faster than a railgun projectile. Now, if this spinning space ball of yours, even though it only rotates at 0.00694 RPMs, the surface of it is still going about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. There's nothing on Earth that can defeat the force of a vacuum when it is released to the open air. Anywhere nearest to gravity, the vacuum always wins. Air pressure, even inside a completely enclosed 3-tier vacuum chamber, for example, if you had a vacuum state in all three of them and you put some air in the bottom one, left it at say 3 psi, you open it to the second chamber, that'd both be 1.5 psi. And then if you open it to the top one, that'd all be 1 psi combined against gravity, where gravity is the strongest. Now, how can, where air molecules are getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and gravity itself is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, how the hell could we have an atmosphere just clinging to us, going these phenomenal speeds, and we just see clouds wafting around through the sky?
Yeah, so for your first point, which you brought up a couple there, so we don't feel velocity. Speed is sort of not something that physicists sort of say a lot. It's velocity. It's velocity as opposed to acceleration. You only feel acceleration. It's why that, say, the Shinkansen in Tokyo, the bullet train, you don't. It's one of the smoothest rides I've ever been on.
It wasn't the question.
It doesn't feel like. Excuse me. You made a point. I'm addressing your.
I didn't say anything about your feelings.
Don't interrupt.
All right, let's just keep it.
It wasn't my question.
All right, just 1 second there, Mark. So if he doesn't feel like you're answering his question, just succinctly, just clarify what your question was.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Ryan.
I wasn't talking about the feelings of it. I was talking about how the air clings to it at those speeds through the vacuum. That's my question. No feelings.
All right, it's Mark's turn.
Okay. You brought up the Earth travels at this speed kind of thing, and this is the shtick that he does. You try to address his points, he just yells and screams, and he acts like a crazy Australian wizard.
Get on with it.
Apparently, he thinks he is. So the speed is relevant because velocity is not, you don't feel velocity. And when I'm talking about feeling, I'm not talking about emotions. I'm talking about your physical senses, your touch basically, or your senses around you, which is how we feel if we're, because you're basically saying, hey, you're going so fast. It doesn't matter. It's called inertial frame of reference, right? So the frame of reference. Now, secondarily, this whole thing is that vacuum does not suck as you're sort of trying to describe. It's that molecules, when they get together, they push against each other and are pushed out into the vacuum. So gravity is enough to keep those incredible amount of molecules down towards the bottom. The thing is that you've just busted your own theory because you said, hey, it will equalize at 1 throughout the entire container, 1 psi. Correct. Yeah, that's true. But we don't get that on Earth. We don't get an equalization of the atmosphere. What we get is a pressure gradient going from very high pressure at sea level all the way up to very low pressure near the top of the atmosphere, near the limit of the atmosphere.
We
So
attend the ball eventually.
that does not happen. Yeah, that shouldn't happen on your model. It should be just one continuous pressure.
No pun intended. Go ahead, Iron.
It's absolutely only possible on our model because if the Earth was hurtling through a vacuum of space, I don't care how much gravity you think you've got, it's not going to keep any of those gases moving lockstep and barrel with every cloud, as I said, simply wafting with it. We would lose the atmosphere in an absolute instant, especially at those speeds. I don't give a crap about feeling those speeds. Obviously, we don't because we're not moving at all. We'd know it if we were. It's just ludicrous to think we could be moving at those speeds and the properties of gas behave in the way they do, unless it was all enclosed in a huge, massive container in the first place, in which case you'd still have a flat Earth floating in the middle of a giant bauble lost in a galactic sea of some sort. It's just the only way physics works. Water will always find its level. That debunks your globe.
Okay, that's another point. Water was wow. That's just like a catch cry. So this whole thing is basically. Excuse me, Ross.
All right. To be fair, you did cut him off on the last of his sentence, but this is fine. Go ahead there, Mark.
Well, he keeps going to multiple points, and I really don't want to do this thing again of him cutting in, and I can't address it.
Who are you to speak?
The Earth hurtling through space, as I've explained, it's an inertial frame of reference, and everything in that frame of reference has conservation of momentum. So the air is traveling with us through a frictionless space. It's not that it would get ripped away, because ripped away by what? What would rip it away? There's nothing out there to rip it away. When you get something ripped away when you're traveling through the Earth's atmosphere, it is the air that's ripping it away, but we're talking about the air traveling with the Earth. So this is the same as if you are jumping on a trampoline being pulled by a car. You will just seem to be going up and down. You won't be ripped backwards if you're doing that. And I remember seeing a video where somebody is showing somebody jumping on a trampoline while being hauled by a car. The inertial momentum, the momentum that you have, will be conserved. So to your frame of reference, you are just going up and down. So to the frame of reference of the Earth and the air around it, you are simply just stationary.
Okay, so obviously you didn't listen to a word I said in my opening statement, which was completely entirely about that, how in a vacuum environment such as the moon, the instant they opened up the latch of the door, there'd be the air would just completely immediately evacuate. That's just the way it works. Vacuums do technically suck, even though you can also say equally that higher pressure is pushing into lower pressure. It's both are happening at the same time. So you didn't listen to a word I said about how the vacuums would work. And yet, if it works that way on the moon, how come it can't similarly work that way on a globe? You know, it's still in the same vacuum environment. Gravity is not that strong. We've seen that. You can lift a straw out of a glass of water and that tiny vacuum will overcome gravity and prevent it from coming out. So everything proves the vacuum force will always win, except on a stationary planar Earth where everything finds its place according to density and buoyancy. That is how we have our atmospheric gradient, because the gases themselves get less and less and less and lighter and lighter and lighter. It makes perfect sense. The only way it can make sense is if the Earth isn't hurtling through a vacuum of space.
the pressure gradient doesn't make sense on a flat Earth, because if there's a container, it should all equalize, but it does not. And this is a problem for flat Earth, not for the globe. Now, on the lander, what you have is a very small object without the gravitational attraction. I bet there were some air molecules that were attracted to the lander, but it's not enough to stop the incredible amount of pressure inside that lander pushing all that air out into a vacuum. It just isn't. And there would be a pressure gradient, although it would be incredibly small and almost non-existent, because that lander is only a fraction, like a tiny fraction of the size of Earth. If you could get a lander the size of the Earth, the same thing would happen. It would form a pressure gradient about it. But of course, you know, you don't understand that it's the amount
The
of
fuck are you
mass that
talking about,
creates.
Mark?
Excuse me. It's
What
the
the
amount
fuck are
of.
you talking about? Yeah, are you on another debate altogether?
Can I please finish without, you know,
let's
Captain
try
Crunch
to
here?
cap it at around, like, yeah, if you can do it in about 15 seconds, just to bounce the
Yeah,
ball.
so the whole point is that the Earth, because it's the amount of mass that causes that gravity, and the lander just isn't enough mass.
I got no idea where
Yeah.
you came up with that idea from. I was talking about the air inside the lander immediately evacuating into the void externally. I don't know what the crap you're talking about when it comes to gravity. Of a loony lander, and let alone that there even be air molecules on the moon in the first place. I mean, they would have all immediately escaped to equalize with the external pressure. That is how gas pressure works. If you don't have a gas bottle, you don't have gas pressure. Everything equalizes, and that's what it's done on the stationary planar Earth. It's very, very much homogeneous for the most part of it. But just as we've got a different pressure level if we go underwater in the ocean, as we get further and further towards the surface, we don't suddenly say there's no more pressure. Now we're just at 1 atmosphere of pressure. It doesn't just go to zero. But when it comes to our atmosphere, or when we get to the top of it at about the ozone layer, once we pass through that, the waters above, that's when it becomes zero pressure, all the way up to the firmament. So that's how our model can make far more sense than yours, when you completely, even though you say, well, we can't feel the speeds, you still ignored what those speeds were. They're phenomenal. They're
5 seconds.
Absolutely incredible. We wouldn't see anything but a blur if we were moving the speeds that you insist we do.
We don't see a blur, just like you don't, you know, you can drive really fast in a car and you don't see a blur of the passengers that you're in the car with. This is nonsense. Like, why would you see a blur because people on the outside of your inertial frame of reference are a blur? As I've explained before, that doesn't seem to comprehend from Iron Horse or
have you ever watched the railgun projectile video?
He doesn't seem to understand that when you're in an inertial frame of reference, when you're in the same object or thing that is traveling, to you it looks like they're standing still, just as if you're on a train going ridiculously fast on a bullet train. To you it looks like they're standing still, to them it looks like you're standing still. There shouldn't be a blur. It's the most ridiculous thing ever said. Now, the equalization of pressure under a dome without gravity should equalize it all to 1, and he says it's homogeneous. It's not. If you go up Everest, you get so little oxygen that you can pass out. The air is very, what they call, thin. And this has been observed by tons of people. I'm not sure why Flat Earth Aussie is saying that it isn't. I have no idea. But it does eventually. And, you know, when you go up in a plane, you can't just open the windows, because the air, which is pressurized within the plane, will be forced out. Now, it is slightly different because it's gas pressure and we have atmospheric pressure, but it's the same principle. And it's because the air is so thin up in a plane. I'm not sure if Flat Earth Aussie Jesus has ever flown or whatever. I have no idea, but, you know, it's very straightforward. I'm not sure.
Again, you're proving you didn't listen to a word I said in my opening statement, because that's exactly what my whole argument was all about. It was about the pressure. Now, they have to wear a pressure suit if they get to 60,000 feet with full air breathing materials. And so from that point on, going any further, there's no taking it off until you come back down below, at least below 30,000 feet, preferably. But here's the thing, too, that you're also ignoring, is that if you consider the helium balloon, how it expands more and more and more as it gets up and up, it's because of the lack of external pressure. Well, our lungs are a bit like that balloon. So when we get higher and higher up, they're expanding and they're just unable to absorb as much oxygen for a start. We have to breathe a lot deeper and heavier. And there is less oxygen because it is a slight density gradient. You can see that density gradient in the atmospheric colors at sunset. So oxygen is more likely to be more abundant at sea level. This is why people generally holiday to the ocean at sea, go to the ocean for their holidays, because that's where you're generally more refreshed. The higher and higher up you go, yes, the air does get more and more rarefied. But if we were hurtling through a vacuum of space, there would be no air. There would be no moisture. We need that pressure.
All right, just before you
Yeah,
respond, I closed the poll, and we had 603 votes. So if you just hold your thought for 1 second, 58% of our audience agree with you, Mark, that it is a globe. 25% of our audience right now agrees with Iron Horse that it is flat. And 16% we just are going to say they're unsure, but they say the Earth is in better shape than your mom. Anyways, so with that meme and trolley poll out of the way, I'm going to start a new one to let the audience engage with, and we are going to get to Q&A shortly, everybody. I'd say, what would you guys feel? Maybe 10, 15 more minutes of an open discussion. We'll just kind of let the ball keep rolling. I know some people in the after show are going to say Ryan said ball way too many times, and they're going to be whining. Anyways, go ahead there, Mark, and respond. That's all.
Well, I would like to change the topic because I don't think Iron Horse is listening, so I would like to sort of talk about the other thing that I wanted to bring up. But basically, you know, again, with the airplane, it's not enough mass to generate the gravity that would need to hold that air in on that sort of pressure. It's exactly the same reason. The idea that a plane and the Earth are going to generate the same gravity is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. So the whole idea is somebody's come up with something called the final experiment, which is people going to Antarctica to see the 24-hour sun, to see it in the sky for 24 hours with it never setting at all. So I want to know if you're going, and if not, why aren't you, if this is so important to you?
First of all, why would I go? I mean, I'm just an average Aussie bloke. You know, I'm just a guy. I live in my life. You know, I have my opinions. I have some sort of abilities to discern the truth about things. But why the heck would I want to go to Antarctica with a bunch of drop kicks for any reason whatsoever? It's not going to prove anything. You could send 50,000 people to Antarctica, all with 24-hour cameras, and start filming it, and then the problem is solved. Why would I go on something as ridiculous and benign as something that's not even an experiment? It's an observation. It's just a gimmick. It's a money-making exercise. It's going to get heaps and heaps of media attention, and I certainly wouldn't have any part to do with it.
Oh, there's nothing average about you, honestly. You are, you know, a very, very tiny minority thinking that the Earth is flat and somehow there's a crystal in the sky. It's not. There's nothing average about the average person. Is
having an opinion doesn't change.
The average person is educated and knows that the Earth is a globe because they see the evidence around them and the evidence. Yeah, see, this is why you're not average. You're a conspiracy theory nut. That's what you are.
Yeah, of course, conspiracy theory nut, because I know the truth of the whole history of how the education system comes about. I even described that again in my opening statement, but of course, not a single thing did you listen to.
Does your crystal tell you that?
Oh, good one, Mark. You're so funny. I described it all in my opening statement. Right. Shut up, Mark.
Let's let Iron Horse jump in here right quick.
Well, if he's allowed to call me brainwashed, I think magic crystal is the least of.
Well, that's what education is, and that's what makes you say silly things about crystals, which are actually quite amazing. So, yes, as I said, if you understand the history of education, everything goes back to the church. Everything was ruled by the Vatican. All the nuns had all the orphanages. They started all the schools. They had all the hospitals. It's all church, church, church along the way. In 1543, it was a Jesuit priest who gave us the heliocentric model, church. Who was it? George Lemaitre, who gave us the Big Bang, Jesuit priest. That's all the schools and institutions are run by the church. And so you don't even realize that you've been brainwashed by religious indoctrination centers your entire life for so many generations that you don't even know it. That's the problem with being brainwashed, is you don't even know you're brainwashed until you are no longer brainwashed, and then you see, once you're better, once you're cured, you can see, holy shit, how could I possibly have believed all that stuff? Why did I ridicule people? Oh, I should tell them to go and get more education. Aren't I clever? Because that's where I got.
Did the magic crystal tell you that? Did the magic crystal tell you that?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Yeah. So this whole idea that the 24-hour sun wouldn't prove anything, it absolutely would, unless I think you've said before that everybody has their personal sun. Do you still believe that everybody has a personal sun?
Absolutely. As I keep trying to explain to you, that the nature of light says that we see everything through a personal line of sight view through the firmament B, or often called ozone layer. That's where the disk of the sun first appears to us. It's only about 12 miles high. Don't ask me for that in kilometres off the top of my head, but it's only about 12 miles high, where it's projected from the actual firmament about 70 miles high. So it's created two different prisms of light. So if whatever position you're on the ground looking up through the firmament B towards the source, that's where you're going to see your personal subjective sun. And you notice that if you move, it moves with you. All light is personal and subjective. You know, the double slit experiment says only one lot of light can enter one set of eyes, but the light I see is not the same light you're seeing. It's another version of it. Every single version of light is unique to each and every individual viewer, which therefore means the sun is technically unique to every individual viewer and in a completely different position.
So we don't see other people's light, even though we should, under the ways that we understand light to behave. Light doesn't turn off for one person and turn on for another. We can do that experiment with lights, and they don't sort of have this personal relationship with anybody where they decide not to shine to one person and decide to shine to another person. For some reason, the crystals told Flat Earth Horse that for some reason that the light's choosing who to appear to for some weird reason, and he claims that this is what's happening. But we can make measurements and calculations based upon our shared understanding of where the sun is. In fact, that's sort of part of navigation in the past. Like, we can tell pretty easily where we navigate from. If light's just personal and up to somebody's perspective, then that would never work. But we can share between ourselves where that light is, where the sun is, and for some reason it's just a personal spotlight. For some reason, maybe the crystal is doing it. I don't know. This is really,
you've got a really narcissistic personality disorder happening there, Mark, where you completely misconstrue virtually every single thing I say. If you can have 50 people around looking at the same light, but what if half of them close their eyes? They're not seeing the same light, are they? They're only seeing it because it enters their eyes. That is how light is subjective to every individual. Light is everywhere at once. It's instantaneous. It doesn't travel like you think it does. The best example I can give you for that is if you're in a big stadium and it's crowded and everyone does a big, huge Mexican wave. What's happening is the wave moves around through the crowd, but the people aren't moving. The light itself isn't traveling. The wave is moving. And that's what's happening, is that the people are momentarily excited. So that's what's happening with the noble gases of the atmosphere, is when they are temporarily excited, that's what produces the light. And we all each have our individual perceptors of it to absorb our own individual version of it. And it's going to be identical to everybody else's if you're looking at the same thing from a slightly different subjective point of view, but it's still your own unique version. As I proved, all you have to do is close your eyes and you no longer see it. So you know, you need your eyes. It's always been within.
Just say somebody videotapes the sun, right? And they videotape the sun and another person doesn't watch it at all. And he says, this is what the sun's doing. Does each camera have its own personal sun as well to show where it is? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how many suns are there exactly?
There's one source and there's every individual's perspective of it.
But that's just one sun. That's not, but you're saying there was a personal sun for everybody, not just perspective.
Yeah, but the one you see is not the one I see.
So it's a different one, but there's still only one.
It's an apparition. It's a projection. Like we can watch the same movie at different times in different places. We're still watching the same movie. It's still identical to us, but it's our own personal individual perspective of it at the time. It's still the same thing, but from a different perspective. Whereas we're seeing it actually projected. Our projection screen is the atmosphere itself, and everything's projected from the back through to it, through our eyes, through our individual eyes. You can even see it at sunset as you're at the beach and the sun is setting across the water. You'll only see the reflection coming to your feet. Everybody else sees it coming to their feet. They don't see your sun going to your feet. The rest of the water is dark. There's only one ray of light coming to your feet. All light is personal and subjective.
No, you'll see reflection on other parts of the water. You won't just see it at your feet and your feet only. You'll see it all over the place. And other people will see different reflections as well, because when light is actually shining somewhere, that light is bouncing off stuff. That's what the reflection is. we can show this with like a mirror or something. It's not that there's a projection for each of you. It's just that light is bouncing off different surfaces. That's how we see color. That's how we see everything. But you're suggesting that that is personal to you and you alone, and that that light isn't the same light for other people, which is nonsense. That's just ridiculous. Because
everybody just
we
needs
can
their
do
own
things.
version of it.
Well, how do we navigate by the sun then?
How do we navigate by the sun?
Right, I can tell somebody, hey, the sun looks like this from my angle, and they say, okay, the sun looks like this from my angle, and we can find each other. How does that happen if it's just our personal sun that have nothing?
I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Oh, really? So if you're sort of seeing the sun, you know, sort of setting in the west kind of thing, and somebody else can calculate where the sun is setting, you can't say what direction you are from one another.
Probably not. No.
Okay.
I don't see how you could. It makes no sense because everybody's seen their own personal subjective sun, and as if you kept on walking one direction, the sun keeps moving with you. That's how it works. You can watch that happening. If you're watching a sunset, as I always do at this property here where I'm living, every now and then the trees get in the way. So all I have to do is move across a little bit, and the sun has moved with me, and now I can see it again. The trees are no longer in the way, even though the trees are already really far away. I've only moved a couple of meters, and the whole sun has moved that distance with me. That's how it works.
It hasn't moved with you. It's just a really long way away. Because that's like if you say, okay, well, you know, I'm looking at the tree, a building which is obstructed by the trees. I move and then I see the building. The building has moved with me. This is the stupidity of what you have just said.
No, it's not. You can watch it as you walk down the beach. Your personal reflection of light coming to your feet will keep moving with you. The sun will keep moving across the horizon with you. So any obstacles, even mountains in the distance that were previously blocking it, if there's now a gap, you'll see the sun again because it's just moving away on a parallel line to the ground. It is not gone beneath anything. And that's probably a good last
mountains.
Topic to finish on is how come when the sun sets, I'm nearly finished, Mark. When the sun sets, how come we never, ever, ever see a shadow cast up into the sky? All we see is the last orange glow of the neon reflecting off the bottom of the clouds when the sun has completely disappeared. How can you explain that?
I want to address the other thing first. So if you're basically saying, hey, trees are in front of the sun and you move and you still see the sun, so the sun has moved with you, then if you see trees in front of a mountain, you move, you see the mountain, that's the mountain moving with you as well. That's the insanity of what you're saying. That something far away, if you move and something closer no longer obstructs it, that thing has to have moved with you. No, it's just a very, very long way away. It's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard.
I'm not saying physically
this
moves.
whole
it's an apparition. That's how light works. It's an apparition of light, not a physical thing moving.
The apparition of the mountains have moved as well. This is
the mountains are a physical
ludicrous
thing.
Oh, the mountains are. Did your crystal tell you that?
That's parallax, Mark. That's what happens with solid objects, but apparitions of
but
light,
not the sun. That's what happens with solid objects. Not the sun.
Maybe we're hitting a wall. Maybe we're hitting a wall on this one. I don't know if there's. I was going to joke and say maybe we're hitting an ice wall. I'm not sure if that's something else we want to talk about. But if you guys want to go into some new territory, that's fine. If we want to go into Q&A before you know, trigger me to listen to any more Elf albums, I'm gonna have to revisit trying to burn the sun. It's a very early Dio album, so for any old rock and roll fans. But yeah, if you guys want to talk about sort of ideas surrounding that, that's fine. Or any other new territory. Like I said, it does seem like we've hit a wall though on this one.
Yeah, I'm good. I think I've sort of explained my model sufficiently well. I don't see any more point to go onwards.
Yeah, I think Mark will never really understand any sort of new information, no matter how logically well it's explained to him. He'll still believe the fantasy of hurtling through a vacuum of space.
Oh, I understand it. It just doesn't make sense.
Hang on, I'll let you finish. All right. Despite the way pressurized gases work in any other environment whatsoever, except the universe surrounding the magic space ball.
I've explained that, you just don't listen. And, you know, I've explained everything. You
Gravity.
just basically go to A magic crystal told me that you have your sun projection that shines down upon you and you alone, and the sun is never in the same place for everybody else for some reason, and that the magic
There's
crystal
that
makes the
personality
stars
disorder again coming
rotate.
up.
All right. Let's
Wow, projection.
let's
Let's move
go.
into Q&A.
Let's move into that Q&A, guys. It doesn't seem like we're going to be able to move on from here. So
Personality
I'm
disorder.
counting on you
Interesting.
guys. I'm counting on you, the audience here at Modern Day Debate, to help us carry on. I'm going to get into the live chat here. But yeah, no, my brain's just singing music right now. So I got to
Yeah, I
open
have a
the.
personality
Let's go.
disorder. It's called sanity. I know that Iron Horse lacks it, but you know, it's
Oh,
there.
you coming in with that extra
Oh,
juice. All right.
big shot.
LJ is our first Q&A. So LJ, thank you so much for joining us and being here. Why doesn't Earth spin under a hovering helicopter? So when a plane or a helicopter takes off,
Mhm.
why isn't the Earth spinning underneath it? I'll hand that to you, Mark. I think LJ's coming right for you.
Yeah, it is slightly, but it's not far enough away to actually influence it. So when you think about it, and you throw a ball on the back of something, it's called inertial frames of reference. So when you throw the ball and like a train is moving and you throw it, it inherits the velocity of the train as well and continues to, like, you add velocity to it. So when a helicopter goes up, it's stationary as far as the inertial frame of reference of the Earth is concerned, or at least not moving forward. But what it is that if you're outside of that frame of reference, it does seem to be traveling with the Earth. So it's moving in relatively to someone outside of that frame of reference. Same as if you throw a ball to somebody, or if you throw a ball up on a train, in that frame of reference, it looks like it's just going up. But to someone outside the train, it's actually going up and forwards with the train. So from one perspective, the helicopter isn't moving, but from another perspective, outside of the frame of reference, it actually is moving with the Earth.
All right. You got any
So
response there, Iron Horse?
I think he probably should have just said gravity because that was a load of nonsense. You know, he completely handwave dismisses the very model that he believes in when it comes to the speed of the Earth. You know, it's hurtling 10 times faster than a railgun projectile. So anything that gets flung off something moving that fast would be left in its dust in nanoseconds. But of course, we handwave dismiss those things because of our inertial frame of reference. Damn, what was my other point? I had a really good one.
I doubt.
No, I forgot.
It happens to the best of us, and I only claim to be
Yeah.
mediocre, so don't worry about it. All right. Did you have any final
Last word?
thoughts? Go ahead there.
Yeah. So it's not a hand wave dismissal. I've explained it. It's very well understood in physics, so there's no hand wave dismissal here. Hand wave dismissal would be my magic crystal makes it happen. The conservation of momentum is really what we're talking about, and you can look up this online. How momentum is conserved until another force acts upon it. So the only thing that would sort of slow down the ball traveling in the train would be the friction on the air or some other force acting on it, somebody catching it, kind of thing. It conserves that momentum. And the same is true for the helicopter. It's not a hand wave dismissal, and it's a perfectly understood explanation within physics that momentum is conserved until another force acts
Okay,
upon
so
it.
there's
And that
two
includes,
points you made
excuse
there
me,
that need to be
Ross,
addressed.
this is not your time. This is
It's
not your
2 points you've
time.
made. You're meant to have the last word, but you keep making more points. It's 2 extra you've already made,
Can
and you
we
want to keep
please
on
mute
discounting.
All
Ross? He
right,
doesn't
just
seem
one
to.
second there, Ross. We're gonna let Mark wrap this one up, and then we'll carry into the next super chat. And I do apologize, Ross. We do have a few questions for Mark to start, so he does get a little bit more floor time. But go ahead there, Mark. Just to wrap.
Yeah, so this conservation momentum, it still happens even though the Earth is spinning or it's traveling around the sun at a huge speed. I mean, I was almost done, Ross. You could have just,
All right,
been
all right.
quiet.
Before you guys get back into your meta discussion, LJ asks again, how do you personally know if it's a spinning ball, Mark?
Well, I've got the evidence for it, including the circumpolar star rotation. As I went through, maybe you missed the start of the debate where I showed that the only way this can work is on a spinning oblate spheroid. There's also tons of other evidence aside from the photos and the recordings. We've got multiple experiments done. We've got the Eratosthenes experiment, which is done by thousands every single year as part of the Eratosthenes project, which measures the curvature of the Earth. There's all kinds of scientific data showing it. There's a mountain of information out there how we know that the Earth is a sphere. Even things to geodesic surveying acknowledges that the Earth is a globe. You've got great triangles that observe that the Earth is a globe. This has been known for thousands of years, which is why I kind of don't take these debates seriously, because it's such an answered question that it's sort of ridiculous.
Okay. Any response on the other side?
Yeah, it must be amazing to get all your information from thousands of years ago when we didn't even understand the scientific method till about 200 years ago. So it's really scientific way of going about it, Mark. Now, you mentioned there at Tosthenes experiment, and that can just as easily be proving if you didn't go out with for confirmation bias in the first place, that would measure the path of the circumference of the sun on that particular day. And if it had been done on the equinox, he would have measured the path of the equator, the size of the equator, which coincidentally happens to be the size of your imaginary spinning space ball. So all he's really done is measured the size of the circumference of the sun. If you do it on the right day, you'll get pretty close to the circumference of the equator, the day of the sun's path going around above the stationary planar Earth. So anything you've said didn't prove your spinning space ball whatsoever.
All right.
Okay.
Last word there, Mark.
Yeah, okay. So thousands of years ago, I was talking about photos, so I don't know what cameras that Iron Horse thinks we had thousands of years ago, but obviously maybe his magic crystal told him we did. The whole idea is that we have like modern evidence. It's the same reason we can do medicine. It's the same reason we know how engines work. It's all the same reason we have scientific evidence. Confirmation bias? No, absolutely not. We do this experiment over and over, and these experiments are designed to eliminate confirmation bias. If Iron Horse knew how the Eratosthenes experiment worked in modern day, how we do it, he would know that a linear progression of distance in between the shadows or the sticks on the shadows would mean that the Earth is actually flat, whereas a exponential increase, or the amount between them get further and further away means that it is a curvature to the Earth. So we're very aware of this, and mathematically it can be shown. And as I said, thousands of people do this per year in the Eratosthenes project, and it all comes out to an exponential increase in the distance between the sticks.
All right.
Iron Horse, what he said was rubbish about the sun. Yeah.
Okay, let's carry on. You guys are always trying to get after each other. We got quite a few super chats that are in right now, so I will let our live audience know. We still have quite an audience actually that is tuned in right now. So we do welcome you. Hit that like button. We really appreciate it. Boosts us up in the algorithm. Maybe we can get even more people engaged with our topic tonight, which is flat versus globe, Iron Horse versus Mark Reed, or Flat Earth Aussie. Let's carry into the next super chat. But yeah, I do want to remind our audience, if you haven't hit the like button, it does really help us out, especially when we're live. So Meriden says, for $10, thank you so much, Meriden. The other announcement I want to make just before I read your super chat, Meriden, is that we probably won't get time to read regular chats. I have been pulling them out, but we do have quite a few super chats. If you put it into a super chat, we will make time for it, but we do have enough super chats here now, I think, that'll keep us pretty busy for a while. So, Flat Earth Aussie, are you claiming that rockets don't work in a vacuum? Any small amount of research will not only show that they work, but you can easily find videos of it. Thoughts over there, Iron Horse?
Yeah, I believe they work as such, like they can be detonated. But what you'll see is that the fuel inside of it, wanting to equalize with the external pressure when it's in the state of combustion, actually does so extremely more violently. It goes off in a complete nanosecond, which subsequently then compromises the condition of the vacuum chamber in the first place. You haven't done it in a large enough vacuum. And by the time those gases have compromised the vacuum situation, then it manages to get a tiny little bit of thrust. So I've seen all the experiments that I can possibly find, and I've thought it through multiple times how it could possibly work. We don't have a vacuum large enough to even test these things. My question is, would you get thrust in an eternal sized vacuum? And my answer is no, you wouldn't get thrust. You'd lose all your gases out super, super fast. They'd be gone in mere nanoseconds because our technology is designed to work in the atmosphere. And that's why when we watch rockets working in our atmosphere and they get up to through the sky, through the ozone layer, into where the air is completely rarefied, that's why they've lost all their ability to steer, fall over, and shoot themselves back down in a parabolic arc, unable to correct because you need a medium to steer in. So no, rockets don't work in a vacuum.
All right, just before you respond, I'll make my one inappropriate joke, is that you don't need to thrust when you're in a vacuum. All right, go ahead there, Mark Reed.
Yeah, so it's not sort of, the thrust isn't dependent on pushing on the air as such. It's basically the expansion of the gases, and rockets aren't detonated, they're ignited. There's a big difference. Like detonating is actually blowing something up. They're ignited. The oxidizer and the gases expand due to the sort of, not only are they in a very, very high pressure environment, but also the heat causes these gases to expand like any basic explosion or combustion, and basically that expansion of the gas is just like a combustion engine that pushes against the pistons. It pushes against the chamber of the rocket and propels it. So absolutely, yeah, they work. And yeah, there is problem steering without air when you can't use air as a method for steering, yes. But that's why we have things like RCS, which uses small thrusters to actually change direction by expelling very, very, very small thrusts. But yeah, it's definitely a problem steering rockets, but it's not impossible. We can do it with aligned thrusters along the side of the rocket. It's not a problem at all.
All right, last word there, Iron Horse.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if we're talking with a rocket scientist and you got bogged down in semantics, detonation, ignition, whatever. It's just a semantics. It's meaningless. You didn't address how the gases escape at much higher velocities when there's no external pressure. Basically, rockets are last year's technology. If you want to think of a better word, they're archaic. Things that go boom. They should be just stopped immediately. They're not serving any good. Should be looking into more like maglev technology and some sort of other means of propulsion if we're ever going to break through this whole idea of using things that work in our atmosphere. So yeah.
All right, let's carry into the next super chat, and I might have set a few of our live chatters off into a tizzy, and no personal experience. I never found a vacuum big enough. All right, LJ says, why space travel keeps getting delayed 4 decades now?
I'm not sure what you mean. Like, multiple nations have done space travel. They've sent sort of probes. I think India and Japan sent probes to the moon. It's not a great big deal. I think maybe he's referring to the intended 2025 base building exercise that they're going for the moon. That, as far as I know, is still on track. There was delays. I'm not entirely sure what he's talking about, but we're still doing space travel. It's just really difficult to get sort of what they're trying to do on the moon to actually happen, because they're not just talking about sending people to the moon. They're talking about an established base on the moon. Presumably, that will take a lot more work, but I'm unaware if that one's going to be delayed any further. If they do that, they have to go to launch windows when the moon's at a certain position from the Earth and Cape Canaveral, where they're launching from. But space travel's happening all the time. And surely you heard that, billionaires have been going into orbit. Like, I think Jeff Bezos did a trip, Virgin Blue's doing them. The age of sort of space tourism is starting up, and which is interesting, because Iron Horse won't even go to Antarctica, much less go up in a rocket. I think he basically doesn't want to know whether the Earth is a globe or not.
All right.
That's lovely.
Any thoughts, or when do you want to carry on?
Yeah. No, they love to just keep kicking the can on the road, keep kicking it down the road, keep selling the dream, just keep the fantasy alive. So it's a huge, lovely, big distraction. All these people will faithfully defend it, as I talked about. Stockholm Syndrome sufferers love defending their masters. They believe this stuff is really happening. It's all been fake. These guys do not go out
I will
into
push this
space.
forward just because we do have quite a few super chats. So unless you have like a specific criticism, if it's a broad criticism, then like we probably should just
Okay, we do not go to space. No one ever goes to space. It doesn't happen.
All right. Any last words there, Mark, before we do carry on?
Yeah,
Just
Stockholm
quickly.
syndrome, it's not really a thing. There is some sort of, evidence that people do have this connection with their captors. That it's not a real syndrome that's sort of in the DMV5 or whatever, the DSM5. So, and all he sort of said is, oh, well, conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy. There's nothing there. He hasn't sort of explained anything. So, yeah, I've already explained what's happening. It's not, space travel is
Conspiracy
hard.
fact.
I don't know if you know that.
All right. So, with that, I will say we are halfway through our Q&A, Mark and Iron Horse. Thank you so much, guys, for being here and answering the questions that you have so far. And we do have more coming up shortly, but I am going to offer both of our speakers a break, a chance to step out and grab themselves a refreshment if they need to use the washroom. It's natural, okay? Everyone poops. It's just the case. So, if you guys need to step, if you need to step out, that was my old gamer tag, okay? Don't judge me. I just want everybody to know that's fine. But if you guys need to step out, speak now or forever hold your pee.
I'll hold my pee.
All right, you guys got it. Fat ass dogs coming in with a question. If the Earth is flat, then how come there are 0 reports of people falling off the Earth?
Yeah, that's a silly child's question. It's ancient superstitious crap that sailors often feared going too far, they'd fall off the earth. I can't believe that people would still believe that in this modern day and age. When we've described multiple times over that the stationary topographical is fixed at the bottom of the known universe and it's potentially infinite. We just live in a tiny little pond for all we know. Or potentially we've got a dome wall and that's it. Maybe it's something completely else, completely different out there. But either way, there's no such thing as an edge. It's a very silly thing. Just stay away from cliffs. They're the only ones you've got to worry about.
All right. Any thoughts on the other side, or do you want to carry on?
Yeah, maybe it's your personal magic crystal that's somehow, making it look like you're falling. No, the whole idea of falling off the edge of the earth came from people going over the horizon in boats, and because it sort of appears like they are descending off something, that was where the story came from. But yeah, it is just a myth. Other flat earthers disagree with that one. They say there is an edge to it. Other ones say this, other ones say that. It would be nice to have a model. And there's also the weird question of an infinite regress. If the plane goes on infinitely, how do you know it ends? How do you know any of this is the question. Is it the magic crystal again?
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. How can you know? So that's the beauty of it. We've got more to explore. There's heaps more to find out. But as far as most flat earthers are concerned, including myself, is there's absolutely an Antarctic ice wall, which is virtually impenetrable. There's Antarctic mountains, which are absolutely impenetrable. The whole idea of crossing it, if you're going to go by boat and by land, is ridiculous and foolish. The only way you'd be able to do it is with airships. So I think that's why all the airships disappeared back throughout history as well, is because those who had them, they just got the hell out of here and didn't come back.
All right, let's carry into the next question. You guys, you're just making it so I have to listen to a never-ending sea of music. Another great tune, Falling Off the Edge of the World, Black Sabbath. If you haven't heard it, treat yourself, okay? All right, Matt Schultz says, Iron Horse, if you had a laser on a balloon at 100K feet, wouldn't you be able to hit any place on Earth? Easily done experiment that would prove FE. So, just to clarify, they're saying that if you got to a certain level of elevation, you should be able to use laser to pinpoint any access point on the Earth.
Oh, 100,000 feet, was it?
That is what they are declaring here, yes.
Yeah, well, I think the highest, most amateur balloons or even professional grade ones I know of only get to about 128,000 feet. And I think you can still only see a matter of, maybe 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles at the most. So, no, you wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think. I think you'd have to go up about 70 miles, which, 100 kilometers type of thing, which is impossible to do due to the laws of density and buoyancy for that to be possible. And even then, that's the height of the sun, and it's only sees 50% of the Earth at a time.
All right, any thoughts over there, Mark?
Yeah, as far as I know, we have like ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, that can go easily up that far and they don't hit any ice wall. In fact, intercontinental ballistic missiles are programmed to basically go up, let the Earth rotate under them partially, and then come back down. They factor the rotation of the Earth into them, which is why they're so horrendously good at striking other countries and why they can sort of travel so far. So the whole idea that there's some kind of magic crystal in the sky that somehow isn't hit by these missiles is just insane. Nor I don't know how he knows. He's quick to say, hey, you haven't been up there, or you haven't seen it. Has anybody been up to check the crystal?
This is the biggest topic change away from the question I've ever seen in my life. He's talking about sending a laser up that high and seeing if you could point it over an entire flat Earth. No, the Earth is really, really big, is the answer. But no, you can't. Stick to the question, please, mate.
No worries. So that would be your last word. So thank you so much, Matt Schultz, Fat Ass Dogs, LJ Maradon, for all your super chats. That was actually the first super chat from Matt Schultz. So thank you so much for engaging with the channel and our speakers. We look forward to lots of engagement from all sorts of members in our chat. So yeah, if you do have a question for either of our speakers, we're going to carry into the next question. So if you want an answer to something that you feel like, this wasn't clarified, or I think this would really trip up this speaker, get it in as we're going to go through them. LJ asks, what's the proof of Jupiter's mass, size, and gravity? What's the proof?
We can do spectroscopy on the Jupiter and find out what gases it's comprised of. We can look at the size due to parallax, and I mean, we've got telescopes, we've got all kinds of things to check out other bodies. I don't know why we would sort of start doubting the scientific processes that lead us to know what things are made out of and what they're comprised of. We can tell. We've sent probes past Jupiter. I don't see the problem.
I can't believe you said spectroscopy when, as I already explained throughout the debate, that the nature of light itself means that the light doesn't even appear as visible light until it attenuates in our atmosphere, passing through the various noble gases from the ozone layer down. So saying you've sent out probes, I think it's really funny that you're talking about the scientific process when one of the most outspoken cosmologists in the world today, Dr. Michio Kiku, says that in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the power of 100, to the negative 120. And normally in science, if we're off by a factor of 10 to the power of 2 or a factor to the negative 10, we'd call that really bad science. But cosmology, and you just thinking that's the highest science, that spectroscopy, when we're observing the way that the noble gases between us are electrostimulated from the frequencies coming from that body. The next thing is it's also a gas body. Again, gas needs mass to be attracted. You can't have gas attracting gas. It fills its environment, the entire environment. So being a gas giant means it's impossible. All of cosmology is just ridiculous. A big joke, and the joke is on us.
Last word there, Mark.
Yeah, so it's by the sort of radio waves and the light and angular diameter, moon motion, all of these things we can tell what it is. Gas does attract gas. Anything with mass attracts. So gravitational forces don't just work on solid objects kind of thing. They do work on gases because that is matter as well. And as we know, gas does have mass, because we can weigh a empty bottle, a bottle with a vacuum inside of it. We can put a gas inside of it and weigh it, and it does weigh something. So we know that it has mass. So yes, it absolutely would attract one another. I'm not sure why sort of Iron Horse is going to the rest of cosmology. I think he was sort of saying problems with the James Webb Telescope and the age of the Earth, which is sort of so tangential to the maybe his magic crystal made him do that. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh my, you're caught up on that crystal.
Oh yeah.
Gas has mass when you compress it into a bottle. How can something by having weight when you've compressed into a bottle proves that it has mass? The properties of matter are solids, liquids, and gas. It's not mass. That's the whole point of it. The gases fill their container, but without the container, they'd spread out and there is no weight to them as such.
All right. Technically, the last word was for you there, but let's. No worries. Let's see. Stephanie McGuire asks for $10. Thank you so much, Stephanie McGuire. We appreciate, once again, everybody who is participating in the Super Chats. Watch Iron Horse's videos over several past years. Stop being unwilling to question your indoctrination. I don't know if I gave that as much spice as what you were looking for there, Stephanie McGuire. There's not really a question there, but I will say thank you so much. We always appreciate super chats that are just trying to bring up.
Can I say something?
I guess you can. I mean, we don't usually have too much commentary on just like chats that are to bring up a speaker, but go ahead.
I think they're saying, I mean, I'm being accused of being indoctrinated, and that's not the case. Like we do experiments and things to see this. It's not indoctrination. We don't get told this is what you have to believe, and because of some kind of dogma, this is how we know what we've discovered, and this is the experiments that they do to show that. So it's not indoctrination, because that is the impartition of doctrine without sort of any kind of explanation as to how you get there. Much like indoctrination would be telling you that the sky has facets, although you've never seen them, can't prove them, don't know what they're made out of, and have no idea what they're about. But I've only watched one or two of Flat Earth Aussie's videos. I went there, and it was basically him looking at the horizon with a bottle in hand, basically saying, yeah, I don't believe it, kind of thing. It was nothing in there that would lead me to believe it. And, you know, I didn't see the point in watching more, because it just didn't have anything there to watch.
Well, I do make a variety of videos.
Excuse me. I'm sure that Flat Earth Aussie doesn't watch night. Can you please mute him if he's just going to talk over the top of me? Because seriously, he's got no self-control.
Stop wasting your time.
Carry on. I was going to say, we're going to do all
I'm sure he doesn't watch my videos either, and I don't have a problem with that. So, you know, I don't know what your problem is.
Well, thank you. As I was about to say, I make a variety of videos. Not all of them are particularly serious ones about topics I'm overly concerned with. Some of them are just out having a beer or singing a song or whatever. I do a variety of things, and I appreciate people appreciating different things of it. Some are looking for serious, flat earth information of what I believe in, can find it there as well. Just skip through the things you don't like. I've got no problem with that, and I appreciate you, Stephanie McGuire. I've got quite a few followers who sort of understand where I'm coming from, because they're not just seeing one thing and taking it completely out of context. They've seen the history of how all my theories have evolved from one thing to another, and slowly being improved all the time, which is what I think learning is all about. Indoctrination is where you're believing something that you were told to believe in that you cannot test for yourself. Like you talk about pictures from space. How many pictures from space have you taken? Not a one. You know, that you're believing in things that other people have done for you. That's indoctrination. Questioning the science is how you do science, and that's all I'm ever doing, is asking the questions.
All right. We'll give you the last word there if you'd like, where Stephanie McGuire is making a commentary on your thought process and saying you're indoctrinated. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't particularly want to, like, sort of, you know, have to wade through a bogan claiming just this, that, and the other while he's out looking at the horizon in order to find any kind of model. I mean, if he had a model to present, he would have presented it today, but he doesn't. And he doesn't actually present how you know that there is a facet in the sky. He doesn't present any of that stuff. All he's got is claims. He just claims this. I'm presenting how we know the Earth is a globe, how you can test it for yourself. He doesn't present any of that. He just makes this random claim that everyone's got a personal sun, that there's facets in the sky, that all of this works just so, without any
last word or last
explanation.
Sorry,
no self-control. Yeah, he's
last
got no
word or last
ring
whatsoever.
All right.
You know,
all right.
A last word shouldn't go for 5 minutes.
All right. Well, it wasn't 5 minutes, to be fair, but we can shorten it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's just the last thing. It is the person with no explanations and no evidence that has to interrupt and say stop people from talking, because that's what I'm
interrupting.
Rambling.
I have no evidence. All right, sorry. All right. Fern Lovebond asks, facing south on flat Earth, we'd see stars move horizontally? Question mark.
On the flat Earth? Was that for me?
Well, Mark is nodding his head. So, Mark, if you want to maybe clarify what Fern might be asking here, and then we'll let Iron Horse answer.
So if you're looking south, it's in relation to my circumpolar stars in the south. So if you look south, Stars are moving horizontally. They're moving from side to side and then going up and then going down and moving horizontally from that way and then that way. So I think he's asking you, why should they be moving horizontally?
Yeah, I've never seen them move horizontally. I think you might also be asking, why don't they move horizontally? That's sort of what I picked up out of that. But they appear because they're a personal line of sight to each and every individual viewer. So you're only seeing, again, just like with the sun, you're seeing your own version of the stars. They might look identical to everybody else's, but they're still those ones, especially just for you in your particular line of sight to the thing that is creating them. It's creating the sonoluminescent effect through our atmosphere that makes the gases twinkle and sparkle like they're underwater. We see that individually to each and every one of us. So we'll see the same version, but it's a unique version to us, the viewer.
All right. Let's carry into the next super chat. We have Jiffy Jiffwald asking, Flat Earth Aussie Jesus. They know your whole. They know the whole name there, Iron Horse. So you better watch out because Jiffy Jiffwald's
That's
coming
the
at
name
you.
of the horse I rode in.
All right. What's the firmament / dome made of? We'll start there.
To the best of my knowledge, there's several firmaments, but the main one that we call the firmament would be frozen hydrogen. It gets colder and colder and colder the higher everything goes up. And because hydrogen is the lightest of elements, that is why it gets to the absolute top where it freezes and then holds in the ocean of superfluid helium. So it's basically made out of those two things. When the energy of the sun passes through that, we get the scientific point of view of saying that the sun is fusing hydrogen into helium, and that's where the orb.
I'm going to be Jiffy Jiffwald here. How far is it? He asked a lot of questions.
70 miles.
How far? 70 miles. How thick is it?
No idea.
No idea. Okay. And how do you know about the firmament? Firmament. I got to say it right.
Well, because ordinarily when we're looking up through the Earth, as I said before, we've got the ozone layer, which creates a shield that we can't see through. But these days we now have high altitude balloon footage. It's the biggest game changer in all of human history, where we can put digital cameras up and send them up to amazing lofty heights, twice the height of firmament B, so we can see what's beyond there. And that's where we can sort of estimate the actual heights. We've sort of sent a go fast rocket up to about that height as well. So once we get above the layer that sort of hides everything, we got a better estimate how high it might possibly be.
All right. Jiffy Jiffwald said, simple questions we've yet to hear substantive answers to. So, Jiffy Jiffwald, if you have a follow-up, you can put it into a super chat. If not, Mark Reed, you're welcome to follow up if you'd like.
Yeah, maybe this sort of video footage has a personal video footage for Flat Earth Aussie Jesus. But I've never seen any video footage that shows any kind of frozen hydrogen or any kind of firmament up there. I would like to see how you know this is actually frozen hydrogen without getting any sample or any kind of evidence whatsoever. And if you're looking at video footage, why don't we see the video footage of the balloon crashing against the frozen hydrogen up there?
Well, as I said, the helium balloon can only reach a maximum height of about 24, 25 miles. It's too dense. If it bursts, all the helium will go up and rejoin the helium ocean up there. When we do see it, when we see the sun, that's all we see is the sun, because it is so bright. Everything else is complete and utter blackness. The helium is actually acting as the shield, which contains the orb of the sun that we see. So you won't see it in the daytime, and the sun is always visible at nighttime once you're up at that particular height anyway. There's just nothing to see but utter blackness. There's no stars once you're up that height. You might see the tiny dot of the moon. That's the thing that projects the moon down into firmament B, where we see our plasma projection of the moon, the thing we can never land on. But other than that, we can't get that high. So how do you expect to get samples? It's just logical deduction due to the laws of density and buoyancy, that hydrogen being the lightest, helium being the second lightest, that's what's up there. Ozone is the ozone layer, that's the frozen oxygen, which is the beginning of our blue sky.
All right. Let's carry into the next one right after I review our poll right quick. So we have 400. We're at 417. We're almost at 420 again there, guys. That's, like I said, that's light up time. Who did you find the most compelling speaker? All right, so winning right now at 43% of our audience out of that 419 votes now. Come on, one more person. We've almost got it. 43%. The Mark Reed. All right, Flat Earth Aussie Iron Horse is coming in second place at 29%. And then the voices in my own head. The voices in your own head came in at 21%, and then only 6% of you found me compelling. Well, screw you. I'm compelling, I swear. Anyways, let's carry on. Carry into the next question. I didn't actually mean that. I love our audience, but obviously they're voting for our speakers. You guys are the most important people here. We do appreciate both Mark Reed and Iron Horse coming out to Modern Day Debate, and all of our speakers that come out here. And once again, we are going to read the super chats as I scroll through. And thank you to everybody who has put in a super chat. Dr. Tapioca Weasel. It's been a while since I've heard from Dr. Tapioca. I hope you're doing well there, buddy. What is the crystal made of? Is it of this world? Is it of the Final Fantasy world? What's going on with this whole crystal talk? What's happening?
Yeah, that's where I was sort of trying to hint at, but it was getting a little bit off topic when I started talking about the pyramids. I think it's something more etheric, which is to do with the pyramids, why they were even built in the first place, and that they are somehow projecting out a sort of energy into an energy grid that as everything rotates at 15 degrees per hour around us, it's creating some sort of film in the sky that creates the kaleidoscopic effect. I'd love to learn and know more about it, but it can be expressed in the star tetrahedron shape or in the kaleidoscope or in the cut jewel shape, that something is definitely moving, and I think it's probably more etheric than it is physical. So hard to say what's made out of light.
Any thoughts on the other side, or do you want to carry right in?
I'm just going to say something is moving, and it appears to be Flat Earth Aussie's bowels. Thank you.
Oh, man. See, there was a couple people who were quoting you earlier there, Mark, and they were saying, excuse me in the chat, and I was going to make the joke of, like, we should only be saying excuse me this often, if we're gassy, but you beat me to
look,
worse jokes.
What am I supposed to say? The pyramids are causing the sun projection through a crystal? I mean, seriously, there's no evidence for this whatsoever. It's just a conspiracy claim that I don't know what even to say to this. It's
nothing but
so
toilets
ridiculous.
And debauchery over here at Modern Day Debate tonight. So the KKK.
Yeah, it's an intellectual thought experiment that explains the observations.
The KKK asked us a question. Did you know this, guys?
Unicorns.
Did you guys know that the KKK has questions regarding the flat Earth and globe debate? This is new to me. I don't know if I should read this. I think I should paraphrase that this is a super chat that I'm reading, honestly, because it's kind of spicy to some people out there right now, especially what's going on. Mark, why are you using the same talking points as people with tiny hats? You can respond to that however you would like.
Same talking points as people with tiny hats.
I think
I don't know.
I think he is making a reference to a yarmulke, and it is a pretty inappropriate insinuation.
That's pretty bad. I mean, if they tell you how you need to drink water, is it automatically wrong? It's just ridiculous kind of argument. And probably slightly racist as well. But at least my hat isn't tinfoil. I will say that.
You wear a pork pie hat, don't you, Mark?
No.
I don't see how it's racist. He's just making a comment about a certain group of people that are still of the human race. So to assume that we're a different race, I think that's actually pretty racist of you. Extremely paranoid.
I'm assuming we're the same race.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
I'm just assuming that this isn't appropriate because it came from a person called the KKK. So let's just be clear.
So I think that Iron Horse here is showing his iron bigotry and racism. Basically, he's saying because we're all part of the human race, we're allowed to be racist. No, that is not a.
No, I did not, Mark.
You've got to respect other people's races, and especially this sort of dog whistles that people like him and the people around him do. That sort of go, okay, let's pick on how these people dress as a reason why you believe something. It's just a racist dog whistle that they're putting out there, which I wish I could say I was surprised, but when you start to believe in one conspiracy, you'll start to believe all of them, and that's where your critical thinking is really bad, because you'll believe anything you're told.
All right. Before I get myself into any further trouble where I'm going to have to clarify myself for years to come, let's see here. Hayden Sharir says, hey, Mark, Did you know the shadow from a sphere onto another sphere, Earth and Moon, comes onto and leaves as an oval shape, not a circle?
Well, it is part an arc of a circle. It's not really oval. You just see a partial circle because of the way that the shadow is projected. It's still the same angle of arc. The angle of the arc does not change. So you're kind of wrong. The shadow gets smaller and smaller as it moves away. It sort of only has partial arc of the shadow, but it's not an oval, as in it doesn't have the same because an oval, the arc of it is at different points is different angle of arc.
Wow, what a lot of and to say you don't even know how shadows work. And even to tell the questioner that it was wrong. If he makes a statement of observation that he says he's seen it make an oval by drawing another ball shadow onto another ball, well, telling him he's a liar, that's a little bit sort of, how do you do? You can take a board in the middle of the day, put a ball on the ground and cast a shadow over the ball, and that shadow will be curved. So it's not even any proof of anything whatsoever that's making the shadow. It's usually a very large, actually, arc when it eclipses the moon. Um, but when we do it with a ball onto another ball, it's a completely different shape altogether. You use a board, it actually makes the same shadow we see during a lunar eclipse. But not that any of us believe the sun actually goes beneath the earth. That's absurd. It's some other celestial body that's eclipsing the moon when that happens, and everybody sees it at the same time. So, yeah, that's absurd to think that you're such an expert on shadows. And everything you said was wrong.
All right. Let's get into the next one. Let me just get back into our live chat. I'd seen somebody trying to pick on me in the live chat.
Don't I get a final word at all?
Uh, yeah. If you want to have a final word on that one before we move into, we got two more chats coming in. So if you hear me making this call out right now, this is our final chance to get your super chats in. So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Flat Earth Jesus brought up at the lunar eclipse, because it's something that can't be explained on the flat Earth, and they come up with all kinds of what I would call magic crystal solutions to sort of explain it away. But it's kind of that maybe Flat Earth Aussie Jesus should stop playing with his balls and actually go out and take an astronomy course or something. So this whole idea of sort of, oh, well, we see it when I adjust the circumstances kind of thing and move my camera around and do all of this kind of stuff. This is the kind of poor experiments that they do. It's what led them to believe that moonlight has sort of a negative temperature at one point. So I think that you really should do scientific experiments and not just play with your balls in the backyard.
Holy
light. If he's going to make an accusation like that, I deserve some sort of defense. And the fact is, I've gone and done hundreds of moonlight temperature experiments.
You have a right to play with your balls. Is that your defense?
And I wasn't even playing with my balls at the time.
Mark, yeah, we don't judge here.
Yeah, but the moonlight temperature test is a verifiable thing. It does get colder faster in the moonlight. However, I disagree with most flat earthers. It's the reason why it does it, and it's due to thermal evaporation. Lifts the warm air up faster as colder air comes and fills the place, and that will cool the object faster than a thing that is insulated from the moonlight at the time. I don't think it's a cool light. It has a cooling effect.
Maybe the crystal is giving you personal results for your experiments as well.
I've done it hundreds of times, Mark. I
disagree on what actually causes this phenomenon.
Maybe
it's a personal experiment.
Hold on there, Mark. We've got more super chats. Ryan, modern day debate. Hey, your mods seem to block me over disagreements in a different room and dislike my name. I don't know what's going on, Sir Buggy. Maybe something's going on in our chat. Appreciate that you've been a long time viewer. I'm not sure what's happening exactly there, so rest assured it's not me. I'm just hanging out with these fellas here, and I'm going to go over a poll one more. Now you're up to 43%, 29% up for Flat Earth Aussie, and then we got 21% for the voices in my own head, and now I got an extra point. I'm at 7%. All right, Ryan thy mod, trying to keep the peace, everybody. That's exactly what I'm doing. Somebody was picking on me, though. They were saying only Ryan could lose to Flat Earth. And, all I have to say to you is I'm just going to cry and, and go see my beautiful wife and hold her while I just bawl my tears out. You poor incel. Anyways, Hayden Sharir, my room full of guitars and amps back here, you know? Like, I'm so sad. I'm having a hard time just coping with everything. All right, Hayden Sharir says, "Hey Mark, did you know the shadow from a sphere onto?" Oh, that's the last one we just read. That's right.
That's the last one.
One last chat. I lied, and I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't mean to lie. That's a terrible thing of me. Earth first, space later says, if humans have free will, we should be able to explore above the 60th north and south parallel, no matter how dangerous. Why can't we?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, and it relates back to everything I was talking about, is that we are not in a free world at all. This has been ruled by the church and the military since the beginnings of time. The Royal Navies, the subsequent air forces, all the other forces, they are controlling everything. We're not free to explore whatsoever. And that's a really good question. Why aren't we? We should be able to. We have to do a Truman Show thing and somehow force our way through. We've got to do it ourselves. It's just not permitted. It's crazy.
It is permitted, and sort of the final experiment is taking people to the Antarctic to see that the sun does not set for 24 hours, which is going to come up next Australian summer. So you can see all of your buddies sort of come back and try and explain away why that happens, which is going to be quite funny, actually. Or they've got to explain why they're not going. I think Jeranism is going. But yeah, we can explore there. It is a very, very harsh climate, and people do have to be prepared when they go to like Antarctica. It is an incredibly hostile environment, but we do explore it. It's absolutely fun. We do scientific experiments there. We take ice core samples from there. So yeah,
that is not exploration, mate. That is not exploration. That is going to a few protected areas, the only ones that you have to go through with permission and supervision. You're going on a Boy Scouts camp. They're not going exploring whatsoever. It's absolute rubbish to think. And I've seen videos of boats just leaving Australia, somewhere south of Tasmania. They're getting pulled over by the Navy because they were just going fishing, but they went too far and they tried to ignore it as much as possible. They got intercepted by the Navy. All the boats are tracked, all the planes are tracked. Nobody is free to explore, which was the question. You go to a few of these protected base camps, and that's it.
All right.
Yeah, so they can, scientists and stuff can.
We'll move into closing statements. It doesn't look like we have any more super chats coming in. Kevin Howe says the mod is super sensitive. Kevin, you're right. I'm so sensitive. I should have been your gooch. All right, so let's go into our closing statements. Mark Reed, you got 1 minute on the floor. Let everybody know where you are, where they can find you, and your thoughts on our discussion tonight.
Yeah, so I learned a lot tonight about how somebody can really fall to the very worst ideas that are out there. This whole idea that there is, an ice hydrogen dome crystal faceted thing up there, but you can't reach up there. So Flat Earth Aussie Jesus is basically acknowledging that he could not go there to actually check. We've got experiments, we've got rockets going up, we've got all of these different governments doing all of these different things that all align with what the scientists tell us and that we can observe from sort of the ground. Now, when I asked the question, how does this circumpolar rotation happen, and explained that on the Earth, you can easily change from the plane of rotation from going from the north to the southern hemisphere, which reverses the direction going across that plane of rotation. All understood by physics. You can do it yourself with a fan. If you go to the other side of it across that plane of rotation, you'll see the direction reversed, or apparently reversed because it's still going the same way. But that question posed, we get a nonsensical, non-scientific, completely conspiracy theory about magic crystals in the sky with facets that somehow cast light in different directions, that somehow make it seem like we've got a personal sun, even though there's only one sun and we can correlate it between us. But no, apparently it's got to be this magical sun with a crystal and all of this nonsense that Flat Earth Aussie Jesus admits he doesn't know it's there because he's never been there to actually test it. He hasn't done any experiments on it. All of this is just baseless assertions and claims. There is nothing here to actually show that he knows any of this stuff.
All right, we're done. All right, over to you, Iron Horse, and I'll give you an extra 10 seconds because we went a little overtime.
Yeah, cheers. It seems like Mark is constantly trying to hog all the topics and talk about his lights in the sky, lights in the sky, and everything that he can talk about, even though he says, oh, I can't go out and take samples of what's above, something that nobody else can do either, mind you. But he keeps talking about everything he does is wee, wee, wee. It's like he must be some sort of one of those three little piggies or something. He had a complete misunderstanding of perspective and doesn't understand why um, well, for first of all, why Flash gets lower and lower as we get towards the equator. That's simply perspective. Everything higher gets lower with distance. And he thinks it's because of curvature. And then he thinks that the star's moving because of curvature, even though at no point whatsoever in that north-south journey did anybody actually see or go over any curvature. Um, that's pretty much it. I think Mark didn't present his case very well for the spinning spaceball. He ignored all the strong arguments I had against it, how we could have a pressurized atmosphere in a void of space. Everything is just gravity. That's the answer to everything. You can find me on YouTube under my channel Iron Horse. Sometimes people like chat with me on Facebook as well, Ross Thatcher. So I'm also on Quora, Ross Iron Horse Thatcher. That's about it. That's usually where I hang out. Thanks for debating today, Mark, and thanks for hosting today, Ryan.
No worries. No worries there, Iron Horse. I do appreciate you guys coming out and having the discussion. It's appreciated. We've had fun. At least I'm sure we've had fun. And if you've had fun in our audience, you can hit the like button, hit the subscribe. I'm sure I'm going to see all kinds of comments saying Ryan talked too much this episode. But I enjoy hanging out with these guys. And, my only opportunity is just to make my light commentary and my stupid jokes. So, if you enjoy what you heard here tonight from either of our speakers or my stupid jokes, like I say, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we will definitely I was going to say I should check the upcoming notifications, but I think I'll come back and do a little post-debate op. So we'll let our speakers go, and we'll see you guys in a little bit. Cheers. Bum ba da bum bum bum. Out.
All right, no
Sure.
worries. Oh, that was fun.
All right, I said we come back for some housekeeping. I made all these inappropriate jokes throughout all the show, and now I have to come back and clean up after myself because I've just been. I got myself in trouble. James messaged and he was mad at me because I made so many inappropriate jokes. No, I'm just kidding. James doesn't care. He doesn't care because he knows that this is a fort that we both hold down, and we both have a lot of fun at Modern Day Debate. We hope you have a lot of fun here too. Honestly, there's not a huge policing campaign as far as that goes at Modern Day Debate. We try to keep it as open so that you guys know that you're getting the fullest extent of what each person thinks and how they combat those ideas in a natural space. But yes, of course, I am here to be a glorified peacekeeper. When people have requests. So we do have some upcoming debates. So on the 3rd of October, I'm going to be back hosting the Christian versus Skeptics debate. So that's Did Jesus Rise from the Dead? So if you haven't hit the notification bell for that one, do so. See, look, I'm just going to pull this up. This is our Modern Day Debate page right here, and then you can see we have a live in-person debate. So if you haven't hit the notification bell for this, look, I'll hit the like button right now. If you guys head over here, you want to hit the like button with me, that's great. I don't see a whole lot going on here. Get your thoughts in the chat. Look, I am subscribed. I got all the bells on. I know what's going on. Usually, except for when I find out that I'm supposed to be hosting and I had no idea. That has happened maybe once or twice, and that's okay. We work through it. But ultimately, we do appreciate everybody who put in a super chat and all the people that are hanging out in the live chat right now. Let me head back to the stream and check in on you guys right quick. Oh, look, it's an ad. It's an ad for a must-play PC game. We've done so well. Let's see, we got Alexis Fox in the chat, Simkia, Sir Buggy, Goy Burger, Literalist, Art is hanging out as well, Bill Eli Gradol. How do I say this name? Gradolson? I don't know. And Sim Life. Thanks for hanging out in the modern day debate chat. I can't speak, honestly. It's 11:25. I got up really early, my time. Kids had a birthday party. My head is just full of the sounds of kids screaming and throwing balloons at each other. I don't even know sometimes how I get through my days, I swear. But once again, I can't stress enough that we do really appreciate everybody who's hanging out. If you haven't had a chance to check out the live event that we have coming up, if you're in the area and you can make it for the live event, we'd really appreciate it. But yeah, I think I'm going to close it out. Yes, we love you as well. I do need some sleep, Buggy Goyberger. I think I have to actually pick my son up and move him to his bedroom because I think he's in there with Mom right now, so I'm going to have to deal with that. Oh no, I'm going to have a bunch of people in the live chat saying, Ryan's a Mike Pence type. He calls his wife mother. No, she's Tory to me. All right, so thanks, Sir Buggy. I'm gonna get to bed before I say anything else that gets everybody all riled. So for everybody watching, still hit the like button. We've got what 178 likes that I'm looking at right now, and over 300 people still who are hanging out in the live chat. Maybe you're watching, the debate and you're prior in it, but ultimately, if you're all the way up here and you're listening to me prattle nonsense, hit the like button. I appreciate you, and good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.